We are going to return to the port city of Nyanzaru. While you all are, I guess I should have gone to a better map than this right off the bat. While you all are returning to the actual city, there are a few different options on kind of how you can approach it, as you are essentially coming up from the river Session Star. And as you come up, you are coming to the coastline about 20 or 30 miles to the southwest of Nyanzaru that is on a promontory of the Bay of Chalt. And it comes out, or it rather sits on this promontory between these two rivers, Soshin Star, and the other one I should look up in my actual book because that one is foggy. But we're going to call it the Tariki for now. So you all are approaching from these different points. On some level, everybody should have kind of a recollection of this because effectively, if you are not Chalton, you came through Port of Nyanzaru, pretty much guaranteed. But while you all are approaching from the coast, the quickest and the easiest path into the town would certainly be to come into the southwestern gate through the old city and past the ziggurats of the old city. But with that in mind, um, very least Yarick and I think Taran was with the group at the start, as well as Island would know that on the actual eastern coast by the river Tiriki's, I'm trying to think of the delta. The Tiriki anchorage is actually where Eku is from and lives. And then the final entrance point is actually Maller's Throat, which is a bit of kind of the modern culture of this land, like the working class kind of culture. But for now, where would you all like to enter the city? Do you have thoughts or preferences there?
And I think Jarek, given kind of how helpful Eku's been throughout their journey so far, would be kind of leaning towards going back through the uh, Kurigi anchorage so that they can kind of see her to her. Not that she needs their protection, but to kind of drop her off, and then before they continue in, um, so that would be kind of his leaning.
So are we definitely dropping Eku off?
You do not have to return me to my home. I am perfectly happy to walk there. It is perhaps just as easy as anything to enter through the old city, so we do not have to climb over any of the ridges that create Maller's Throat. But if you would like to come to my home, we could certainly spend this evening inside of my home, and I could welcome you all.
Well,
So,
sorry.
if you all take a look at the map, kind of on the southern section here, you can see that again, Maller's Throat is flanked by large hills. So while I'm giving you the option to go into any of these three entrances, it's not exactly easy to go into any of these three. But I still wanted to give you the actual choice of how you might approach it because I want to describe it from that perspective.
Why isn't it easy?
You can kind of see in the actual map where it has the I can't think of the word while I'm drawing. The lines that show you the elevation on a map.
Okay, so just from a terrain standpoint, all of the entrances are a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I mean on some level. So when you all first come in, you'll see the old city first. And you will basically see that there is a hill in front of you where you know that Maller's Throat is one of the other entrances to the city. Beyond that, you can't actually see the Tariki anchorage. From where you are approaching, you see the old city, and the old city itself is a bunch of old stone structures. A lot of them are done up with kind of like continued application of can't think of the word for like the stucco, as you kind of just reapply like mud and grass to them to keep the outsides kind of like smooth. But there are two large ziggurats as well as a small ziggurat, and then the actual um there's a pit through the center that is actually kind of like a capital punishment area that you make people run from dinosaurs. Part of why you wouldn't go into the old city is that that orange blob to the west of Old City is a disgusting pit of refuse. It stinks in the Old City. But that's going to be the first thing that you all have experienced. So you can quickly get into the city if you start to head into the Old City. You could do something like going through Maller's Throat that would take climbing over the actual hills, that would give you a beautiful overlook of the city itself as well.
All right. I guess I vote for entering through Maller's Throat.
Taryn, Darren, any thoughts?
Yeah, Terran is. He's fine with going through the old city. Just put something against his nose so he doesn't have to breathe it in too much.
Darren kind of votes for Malar's Throat and thinks it can't be too hard to scale some hills with a giant metalman. He hasn't been walking this whole time anyway, so just sitting in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's two for Maller's Throat. So, and Jarek's not wedded to going through the anchorage, and I don't think they've been through Mallar's Throat before, so they'll get a little bit of a different view. So he's fine with that.
So this will be one of those instances where you all walk across and past all of Old Town. As you slowly start to climb the actual hills, you're going to see that this is all ancient structures. Most of them are pretty big buildings, but there's still clearly like a delineation of like kind of class structure through the buildings of Old Town itself. I was definitely jamming out to Hydra when I last listened to it. So let me turn that down. Just as kind of a reminder to everybody, I want to keep Meeseeks as like a very background music. Kind of turn that down so you can hardly, if hear it at all, and then you can adjust Hydra to whatever you would like as well. Um, Heading into the hills over Maller's Throat, you all will kind of walk up along the actual walls of the city, and this will be one of the first times where the wind coming off of the coast is going to start to bring some of the delicious, appetizing, tantalizing smells that Port Nyanzaru is. The pit of refuse in Old City is quite famous for how horrendous it makes Old City smell. And in the worst of circumstances, the wind kind of rebounds to the city. But predominantly, these are the smells of spices, the smells of dyes, and there's blends of animals and humans, and all of these scents of a hot, strong, dewy, temperate location. I feel like temperate was the wrong word. Uh, but this is kind of a very beautiful walk as you gain these first little like scents and things start to come through. This is one of those beautiful cities that the spices are one of its primary exports. For all of the time that ruled this nation, part of it was for spice and part of it was for the dyes. But as you all kind of cross close to the wall to avoid a long lake that makes up kind of a little trench in between Old City and the western hill that isolates Maller's Throat. You will eventually climb to the peak on that northern kind of end, and you can kind of look level with some of the actual homes of the merchant princes off to the south. All right, sadly, my views are actually from within the city, but I'm still going to share some of these. So, just as kind of like a reminder of some of the things that you're going to see here. From this perspective, you will have not like such a vertical view of this, but almost much more straight on. But that is the golden roof of, I believe that's the Colosseum, off to the very north of the city, past the market ward. Um,
Wow.
my bad, it's straight up called the Hall of Gold. Um, for those who have already visited here, that is a temple to Joaquin, the god of basically wealth and trade. And for a place that is ruled by these 7 merchant princes, that is effectively their largest sign of why this is their city. That temple takes up more real estate than probably about half of Old Town and maybe about a third of Maller's Throat. As you all start to actually crest that hill, you will see into the actual trade district where you can see this long, basically like a conglomeration of tents off to your west. That's where a lot of the actual smells of different prepared foods, and that is just a general, almost anything you need to find is in that tented area. Those who have returned or who are returning, that is the Grand Souk. Um, Across the way, again, level with you, you all will see some of the actual merchant princes' houses. This is a little bit more like kind of a view inside of the actual house, like once you're in their walls, because they are very open atrium style, kind of Greek almost, in that you have the house built like in a square around an open center area, and then they often have a garden as well, but it's often like a open central area with like a fountain, and then a garden kind of in the back to give them kind of grass. But that's like the state of luxury, is to see these homes that are almost built simply as walls, keeping everything nice and spacious inside of it. And that is, you could probably see a little bit of the actual walkway, but you would be able to spot that this collection of merchant princes, those houses are all on a peak. This collection of merchant princes are all on a peak. And some of you could probably see at this point that Wakanda Tamu is actually on that central one. And then one of the other peaks is this section. And I believe there's a total of 7 peaks that make up the actual land, or that Port Nyanzaru is resting on. Is that 5? I think maybe that creates a peak, and the island out here creates a peak. But those are kind of like your initial view into the city from on high as you approach Maller's Throat. In stark contrast, when you get to the peak of this hill, you are going to be looking down into a valley about 60 to 100 feet down at any given point. There are 3 different hanging bridges that cross Maller's Throat, and everything is just tiny little hovels built on top of each other. Everything will look very much kind of like scrap. A lot of homes are like two walls or the start of a wall, and people are kind of sleeping just out in the open. You can see a lot of signs where there's some level. If you can stake out a claim and start to build your home, that will become your home. And there's signs of people who won't leave those spaces hoping to maintain this kind of protecting their things. But um, in the very bottom of Maller's Peak, there's some nicer areas that are trade. But in the long run, this is probably about 40% of the population of Port Nyanzaru lives in these hovels here on about, again, like um 3 times as much land as the Temple of Joachim. So while you all are looking down at Maller's Throat, you could head to either of those bridges and cross over, or you could actually start to like walk down through the actual houses if you would like.
I doubt uh, we would be too kindly looked upon with a big fancy middleman. So maybe we could get like really close to the gate and just descend the hill.
It's much more of a cliff towards the actual walls, because one of the things um, that kind of happens is the injustice of this land is if dinosaurs or undead attacks, they shut the gates, and everybody who's outside of the gate kind of is left for themselves. So you'll see in the places where the actual walls of the city come closest to the actual hills here, they've done a lot to actually cut away that land to protect the actual walls of the city. With that in mind, when you all do try to move through when you do try to move through Maller's Throat, you are going to quickly recognize that Eku is essentially a celebrity here.
Hmm.
And for those of you who kind of recruited Eku already, you know that she doesn't actually keep gold. When people see Eku, you can tell many people are maybe not begging, but they understand that they really only have to see her to get a handout. And she is already handing out coins from your adventures with her.
Darren would take a pretty when in Rome stance and try and mimic that if people don't look unkindly upon him.
So you are welcome to give away or keep as much of your gold as you would like. But as you start to give it away, people are far more surprised than not. Nobody's looking unkindly at it. But it is one of those things where at some point Eku is going to speak in your head. I require very little to live, and I will give everything to these people. But they will always want for more. Perhaps you need not give of yourself.
All right, and still we'll throw away like 3 gold pieces on it, and he's going to be doing finger guns and stuff, really just trying to work the amiable angle.
Ren holds her hand out to Darren.
Slaps one in her palm. 4 gold then.
I was gonna say, so did Rid just get one of the 3?
I don't know, Darren, did I just get 4 of your gold?
No, you
No,
won.
And you'll see Jarrett kind of he's looking troubled by, I mean, he's seen this kind of seen this poverty before on their first time leaving the city, but you'll see he's kind of kind of got a bit troubled expression, but he's not handing anything out. He kind of senses that it'd be kind of like that story of the throwing a starfish into the ocean when there's like a million littering the shore kind of thing. um but he didn't say much, but he's kind of got a, he's not kind of a somber expression as they head through this area.
Yeah, Ren's not handing out cash. She's just looking around, looking ahead of the group, curious about what's ahead.
Damn, y'all stingy.
Yeah, Darren would be more looking around to ensure that no one is coming to take his gold.
But yeah, Jarek would suggest we take one of these bridges, maybe the one closest towards the inner city, and then go from there.
Who has religion? Let me get religion checks from anybody with religion proficiency. Um, looks like Rin. And somebody could roll one for Island if you want.
I don't have religion proficiency.
Oh. What the
I
fuck
can.
did I do? You're on my cheat sheet with religion.
What did you change? Because you did.
In my first game, I did, but I think I don't know. I think I
Oh, it's all good.
I went through that big change. Remember?
This wizard.
Shut up. I changed my D&D Beyond sheet to had to have a subclass, and it erased everything. So I thought I put it back right, but
Oh, right. I
I
got
may
you.
have changed a background, something that changed my proficiency.
I went ahead and rolled one for
I
Island.
have
so
history proficiency.
I don't know what Island's modifier is, but
So passing over the actual chasm that kind of makes Malor's throat, looking down, Island will be able to recognize beneath. This is the Temple of Tamara and is effectively like the god of good luck. So when you're walking over this temple, the recognition of why there is a single structure that is nice here and everything else is these like 4x4 hovels kind of becomes a little bit more clear. The one thing that the poor and the downtrodden are always worshiping is luck. And Tamara is there to both benefit them as well as for people with a little bit more I don't want to get too realistic on that one, but some people might think that they're also benefiting from the poor as well. But Island will definitely recognize the Temple of Tamora as you all pass over that location. But if you all continue along those paths, you see.
Yes. And we passed the Temple of Tamora. Does Terrence see like anywhere that he could donate some coin?
You're kind of walking over it.
Oh, over it.
So if you all went to like the most southern of the bridges, you would see it a few hundred feet kind of north of you. If you went to the first bridge, you're passing almost directly over it. So there's a certain level of you could drop coins to Tamara
Yeah, if your
from
aim's good enough.
directly above it. And then if you went to the middle bridge, you could also basically like throw it at the temple. But realistically, you guys are passing over the actual temple.
Okay.
But at very least, if you want to visit the Temple of Tamara while you are here, you now know what you have to do. You just have to basically leave Malor's throat, and it's right there in kind of the center of everything.
Yes, good to know.
So if everybody progresses forward, and I feel like maybe Jarek is hijacking things to continue forward and into the Tariki anchorage.
I mean, if Darren if Island had noticed the temple and Darren and Taryn had mentioned wanting to go there, I'm definitely willing to go back and say we took a different bridge or something.
There's paths down. Like you guys aren't going to wreck homes with Vorn by going there. It's not meant to make you feel bad for like hurting the poor.
Yeah, so Taryn, if you want to stop by the temple, I wasn't trying to railroad everybody in a particular way.
Does Taryn let everybody know like he actually does want to go down?
Or was it more like a wistful look?
I mean, it'd be
Is he
probably more
looking
like,
dejected in the back of the group?
yeah, very like depressed and not being able to go there. But no, it would probably more be like taking note of it so he could go there at a later
I
date.
gotcha. It feels weird for a thief to be like, yeah, I need to go stop off at the Temple of Luck. But at the same time, like, that's definitely the place that you do need to stop off at.
Yeah, I mean, he knows
Like,
that luck is a good thing to have. Rather have it
can
with
I
you than
have
against you.
Tamora try on the short sword?
I mean, if I can, then I'll keep the short sword.
You're gonna make her cry?
I just figured her tears would be a great thing to cure that short sword of like rolling, like historically, like straight up 2 under ACs just every time.
Sounds like you're gonna piss off a lot of poor people and hovels.
As you all continue on, you're going to come to the next district. This is the kind of this is almost like the commoner's port. So again, those of you who have gone into the actual port city already understand that they have two different parts of the harbor ward. One is effectively for merchant princes, one is effectively for um like the actual flow of massive amounts of goods. And that's kind of the little horseshoe that you see there, where they have like the actual like dinosaurs and not like triceratops kind of lifting things from these boats, and that canal is set up to like wing bang boom, like get boats unloaded very quickly and keep the flow like moving for the port. The Takiri anchorage is a very different thing. This port is a port of the people, and this is a black market port. So any ships that you see docked here probably don't have paperwork for what they need to do. Any people who are selling things out in the Takiri anchorage, you have a pretty solid sense the merchant princes don't know about it, because if they did, that person would be dead. So this is a very interesting, a very lively, and almost a city unto itself. The houses, many of them are still small, many of them are still hovels. There's a lot of these locations that are warehouses. There's a lot of these locations that are like workhouses, where it's almost like just barracks. But as you all come down the hill, you can progress. Probably realistically, I think it would be to say you almost come through like this little area. Um,
So are we are we near the shops? Can we look at the black market stuff in the shops before we pass them?
what were you hoping to find?
I was hoping to find another spell book. Can I buy those?
It will not be difficult for you to find a spell book, but whether you want to purchase one on the black market is a different story.
Well, and
You are most.
and browse weird goods, right? Like
My bad, I didn't catch that. What were you saying?
and browse weird goods. Do I have to be looking for something specific to visit the market?
Oh, I'm just super weird on shopping. Like, if you know what you're looking for, let me know. If you want me to randomly generate stuff, I basically am not necessarily prepared for that, but I can.
No. How do you do like stuff for spells? Like, do I need to shop for that stuff or gather it, or
You can get, if you have a spell in mind, you can look for the spell scroll and then spend time studying it and copying it into your spell book.
I don't necessarily mean a new spell, but like materials for spells.
Mm.
Like
That's the same type of thing. When you know what materials you need to purchase, I am far more inclined to have you do a roll, interpret that roll on how long it takes you to find it, and wing bang boom, you've got it. than to necessarily generate stuff that you don't necessarily want.
Are you going to, or how, but just for my information for the game, you've never asked me for materials before. How do I show, or how do I,
Well, so
As far as things go, you are pretty low level where there's only a very few select spells that have material components. So something like Chromatic Orb takes a 50 gold piece diamond to be able to cast it. Um, that's pretty minimal. If you tried to search for a diamond so you could use Chromatic Orb, I would have you roll for it and try to see if you can find it. Something like Identify is a 100 gold pearl. As far as that goes, Port City of Nyanzaru, there's pearl divers here. That wouldn't be difficult to find. But again, you'd like to put stuff to dice rolls to see how long it takes you to find a pearl that you think is valuable enough, as well as potentially the idea that if you roll extremely low or if you roll extremely high, the pearl that you find might be too expensive, but it can still cast the spell. Um, Getting into higher levels is where there's some stuff that actually gets consumed by the spell, and those are other things that it's often once you know what you need, it's just let me know and we can get it bought.
okay, cool, thank you.
for things like molasses and grasshopper's legs, is it just kind of a given, or
Well,
If you had- I
for
mean-
instance, if it doesn't have a price next to it, part of why I'm sorry, I left this line off. If it doesn't say something like a 50 gold diamond, your spell casting focus covers that. Um, if it says like 100 gold pearl for Identify, spellcasting focus covers that. The other option is it'll say like for Hero's Feast, it is a jeweled goblet that is worth 5,000 gold. Might be 500, but 5,000 gold, I'm pretty sure. And that is consumed. The spell destroys that goblet. Whereas everything that just says something, that's one of those levels of how much do you want to guarantee that you can always do something. If you want to be able to cast Fireball whenever, you can spend some time to go out and buy some bat guano and basically have like a little like leaf kind of wrapped up with bat guano in it. And somebody might take your spell casting focus, but they might not notice a little leaf filled with shit. And when you're in jail, you can pull this out. And the moment you have access to that bat guano, you can now cast Fireball, despite them trying to take everything from you. So that's kind of where those little things without value comes in. How much do you want to guarantee that you can cast the spell? That's where you might want to go out of your way to purchase that component. Otherwise, like having a crystal ball and then also having a component pouch and then maybe even having a third focus is like redundancy to make sure I'm always prepared.
Got it. Well, that's it. Exactly it. I want to buy some bat shit.
Gotcha.
So
So that's one of those things that realistically, if you spend enough time walking through, um,
bat shit? Get
I
your
think
bat
they,
shit.
I think they have animal handlers in the Takiri anchorage, and that's the type of thing you could straight up go there and basically play that you are shopping for a little pet, and in the process, scrape up a little bit of guano. If you want, you can leave some coin behind. If you don't, you can just walk away with it. I don't think anybody's going to care about you stealing shit at this point.
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm prohibitively not deceptive. Um, but maybe the rogue would steal me some bat shit, and I'll pay him for it.
I mean, if you're paying for it, Tara would definitely do it.
Talk about dirty work.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Money's money.
Ted, roll an Arcana check for me.
Ooh, Arcana? Okay.
Yes, please. All right.
Got the wrong kind of
So-
shit.
I'll get some shit.
Rin tells you what's up, and there's definitely a moment where you're like questioning what's happening here. But you're vaguely sure enough that you've heard enough of how casters work that often they do very weird things to work the components of their spells. But for what it's worth, roll a d4 for me, Rin. Takes you all about 45 minutes to be able to find an actual like bat dealer. But in the process of kind of moving into this little section and moving through all of these tiny little tables and through their little booths, it doesn't take Taryn any skill at all to effectively if you don't want to touch it, you can use a dagger to scrape some off of like the bottom of one of the cages. But in the long run, that is next to a skillless operation for somebody like Taryn to execute.
Well, there you go. You're batshit. Now, about the payment.
So like 5 copper? Is that good?
How much can I pay you to not sufficiently insult you?
Here's a gold. Here's the gold that Darren gave me.
That was
I'll take
special.
that. Definitely take that.
They do call it white gold some places, right?
Yuck.
Yeah,
Good fertilizer.
I'll stick with regular gold. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So I think around this little visit to the bat warehouses, Eku is actually going to look to the party and say her goodbyes. On I hmm, I think the thing that's going to stand out the most to Taryn, Jarek, and Island is going to be that on this occasion of her goodbye, she's going to kind of bow and show her respects as she holds your hands once again, one palm up and one palm on top of yours. And as she says, I look forward to your return, and when we will return on our expedition, please do not forget your promise to me that we will be going to Mumbala at some point during our ventures to help those who are most in need.
So as she says this, Jarek's like brow is going to kind of furrow for a moment before he remembers, and then he will kind of playing along. He'll nod and basically just kind of not mentioning Mumbala itself, but like just kind of the vague sort of general, take care of yourself. I'm sure we'll see you again soon, kind of thing.
Do you know how many days you intend to be in the city?
It's a bit difficult to know for sure. We do have to have a meeting with our patron, and but I wouldn't think more than a few days unless something unforeseen comes up. And Jarek will look towards the others, kind of just to check with them if maybe he's forgetting something or they have ideas about how long they might be in town.
I think it all depends on how quickly we can get to see both the merchant prince. Oh, his name.
Would it be acceptable if I visit your dreams during these nights until we rejoin ourselves?
Yeah, that would be okay for me.
What?
I mean, if you want to visit my dreams.
Yeah.
What was your reaction there, Dan?
Um, thank you, but I am good. Darren ass. Stay out of my head.
Ren's good with it. Why wouldn't you be good with it? It's a very nice,
It's my
whatever
safe
she is.
space.
She's gonna look between Rin and Darren for a moment, and kind of like reach out, and both reaching up to Rin, kind of like with two fingers just underneath your chin. I am very sorry, my dear. I cannot join you. And then she's going to kind of kneel down towards Darren and do the same thing where she's just kind of like two fingers underneath your chin. And I understand if you would not like it. I will not enter yours.
I
Uh,
appreciate your understanding.
and then she'll look back towards Jarek and Taryn, and if it is acceptable, I will do what I can to visit one of you and then the other, and we will make sure to keep in contact that way until you are always welcome in my home, regardless of whether we have the conversation first.
Jarek will nod, kind of recalling I think she's visited him once before, so he would have no issue with this. And he would kind of glancing towards Darren, he would like just say like just speaking from my own experience, it's not as intrusive as it sounds.
Darren just goes,
But
and gives you a face. Suspicious eyes.
She'll kind of look to Darren and psychically with this one. I can show you your wildest dreams or simply add myself to your normal dream. But it is primarily a way of a private communication.
Well, all right. Let's just. Okay, I consent to a minimalist vision then.
Well, the things that you enjoy are a little bit too dirty for me, so perhaps I will stick to the others anyways. And she'll
Darren
say that
scoffs.
out loud.
Darren pretends to be offended.
Jarek smirks.
So she will part ways with you all. And you can head on into the gates of the Takiri anchorage if you would like. Is there anything else that anybody would like to search for before you head into the city proper?
So probably as we, assuming we're eventually headed towards the merchant's house, Jarek would probably he wants to get his armor cleaned. Maybe while there, maybe leave it with the armorer to get it cleaned, and then pick it up after they meet with Wakanga, given they've been out now in the jungles for a while and it's all beat up and scratched, and just wants to get it kind of refurbished a little bit. But other than that, Jarek doesn't have anything in particular.
Remind me what armor you're rocking out right now?
Studded leather, so it'll be more like scratches and little and marks and stuff, and maybe getting it like um I don't know exactly how armor care works, but I assume like caring for the leather and stuff like that. If they can like buff out like scratches or whatever, kind of more for just kind of flavor, not any like mechanical thing.
My bad. Did you hear me? Can you roll a D100, Jack?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that part.
So let's see. It doesn't take you long at all to find someone who will do some work on your armor. And they'll charge you like 2 gold for a cleaning and kind of like a reapplication of like a waterproofing to it, and effectively like repairing some of the actual wounds to it. As far as things go, you're perfectly fine to pay that. You don't necessarily have to if you don't want to, because effectively, again, um, it has to be homebrew to like put deterioration of things in there. And while I would love to do it, I don't think it caters to a beginner game. So it's not something I normally do, but there is a certain level where, yeah, by now, 1 to 5, that armor would probably be damn near destroyed. But that's purely up to you if you want to like role playing the actual expenditure. You can have a lot of those repairs done, um, and effectively you'll get it back looking damn near new. There's a lot of easy repairs to leather simply from kind of continuing to work it. You might be able to notice like a few slashes from like um one of the moments where like the gigantic alligator like bit into your boat and kind of just caught your side, so you kind of have like a little bit of like memories from the armor, just as much as like you feel a little bit more confident with it as well.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah, it was really just for flavor. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually like the idea of saying pay the 2 gold, and it's like repairing some like kind of straps that, let's say, like the main armor is like perfectly functional, and you were just losing kind of like some of the like comfort of how it like mounted to your body kind of thing.
Right. And then I guess the only question then is how long that would take if he not that we're expecting to get into a fight while we're within the port, but if he leaves it there for a
You
time,
never
he
know.
would he would have a
I
lower
would say
AC.
you're looking at oh, well, I could do this for the 2 gold, leave it with me for 2 days, or if you need it done quickly, I can put everything else to the side for. Let me get a performance check from you. For 3 gold. With 3 gold, have it for you tomorrow. In the morning? Tomorrow morning, 3 gold?
Jarek will kind of consider for a moment, and if you can have it by tomorrow, then that would be maybe that would be best. And he'll hand over a third gold piece.
Good, good. Thank you. You are most kind. That's me. And you're going to watch as this little, like, kind of scrappy man from the Grand Souk is going to pull just a scrap piece of leather, and he's going to cut with a little, like, razor blade, almost like finger tool, a little number and like mark into it and kind of hand it back to you. This will remind me what piece that you belong to, and you can come back see me. I am Selek, and just this is my booth. I will be here tomorrow. I will have it ready for you in the morning.
Jarek will nod and kind of tuck away the little kind of leather token. Um, very good, thank you. And as he was like taking the doffing of the leather armor, you'll see that underneath he's wearing well, his clothing underneath is it's pretty kind of sweaty and dirty as well, but it's more in the style of like the port, because before we had left, before he had purchased some more kind of local looking clothing, like um, looser garb for the dealing with the heat and stuff.
So you will notice pretty quickly that while wearing the leather wasn't horrendous, as something like having actual heavy armor in this place that would be nigh unbearable, you will very quickly, for the first time in a long time, actually feel dry. Your clothing that is from here in the port has been holding water only because it's been kind of trapped underneath your other gear. But as it actually flows kind of loosely, you're going to dry out much quicker. Your sweat will start to actually kind of like be pulled away from your body, so it makes the breeze feel quicker. It feels like 10-15 degrees cooler in a matter of like 5 or 10 minutes the moment you pull that off. And like this 90-degree unbearable, um, like stifling heat and humidity is cut where it's like, oh, this is hot, but it's not nearly as bad.
So Houston. So you just described Houston.
I've not been to Houston. I'm from Northeast Ohio, and part of what I was thinking is like that difference of when I went to Arizona, and I'm like, holy shit, it's like 30 degrees hotter, but there's no moisture. It feels so much better. But Ohio is always like vicious on getting really hot, but being stupid humid.
Nah, man, you don't know humid till you be in Houston at 125 with that humidity.
Yeah, I couldn't really imagine that because I think we did like 90s to 100 in Ohio with possibly similar humidity where I was from. But yeah, definitely not going to be that level.
Do not
Well,
recommend.
I did a missions trip to Haiti. That might actually be pretty comparable. I was
That's
building concrete work in summertime or in wintertime technically. So it was the coolest, and I think that was like 115-day average.
yowza.
But yeah, this is definitely some of those things where you can step away from an area with a breeze. There's not really stepping outside, but like this is one of those places where you can like take a step wrong and the environment is almost like trying to knock you unconscious, taking your breath away because it is so hot and humid.
Yeah, so Jarek would just like he would spend a few minutes just kind of like standing there, like kind of almost like he can feel air conditioning, just kind of like almost letting the sort of the temperature change wash over him, um, and then he'd be ready to go again. Seeing if the if the while kind of he's here, if any of the others have like things to check out at the souk or
So like this is another one of those places. This is kind of like a main merchant center. You all would have walked through, my bad, the Takiri Anchorage entrance. This is kind of like a meat market. It's actually called the Red Square. I can't think of what it is offhand while I'm pressing the button. But that is a location that is famous for basically all of the slaughter. And it basically has like gutters built in to drain the blood away. And it just has like earlier in the day, it's fresher meat. The further back you go, the nicer the meat cuts are. But you all would have kind of passed that area and headed through a little bit of kind of a bar district is kind of right inside of that same spot there. I think this is actually the main bar. Um, on the way to the Grand Souk, I don't think there's anything of note along that actual road. But when again he is looking for that for the leather, does anybody have anything that they are looking to purchase from a merchant at present?
Darren would actually like to get 5 of the dinosaur teeth strung up onto a little necklace.
Teeth you collected, right?
Right, yeah.
Roll a D100 for me.
Okie dokie.
You're going to find somebody who is actually selling necklaces in kind of like a small little area, and they're just kind of apologetically, I am very sorry, I can't actually do that for you. It is under the actual decisions of another merchant prince, and all of the creation of jewelry must be done in the jeweler's market. If you would like, Prince Zatani has located that it is just beyond where we are to the west on the other side of this hill. If you head that way, we can get you set with anything that you might like. Um, if I may recommend, perhaps you can search for uh, my friend Natiri and let them know that Chiron has sent you.
Oh, my notes weren't working. Okay. Oh, well, heck. 1 second.
But effectively, my point there was that the Grand Souk doesn't technically do jewelry, so you do have to kind of like move over into the actual like jewelers market to have jewelry created.
Okay.
But if you head on over there,
Yeah.
do you take the time to find Natiri, or do you just want to go to a jeweler?
Uh, well, so he'll ask the person that he was talking to originally if they have any of the tools. Like if like all he needs is like a really small auger to just like do it himself sometime and put a piece of leather through it. So if she has the tool, he'll just purchase it from her there. Otherwise, he would go on to just a jeweler.
You are most welcome to purchase a kit of jeweler's materials from the jeweler's district, but I again must apologize to you. If I am to sell it to you, I would be breaking the law and we would both be criminals.
Well, I
Um,
certainly won't ask you to do that then, and I do appreciate your time. Could you just point me in the direction?
so again, it's just like that northwestern side of the hill
Right
that
on.
is effectively west of the Grand Soup.
Yeah, Darren will take just a little bit of time, not trying to spend more than an hour trying to get it strung up or to get the tools to string it himself.
Yeah, and maybe
But
like as they're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, that gets me back to the same question then. Are you going to look for Natiri?
He will look for Natiri by reference of Siron?
Roll a d6 for me. So it takes you about 45 minutes to find Natiri.
Right on.
And uh Siren. Where did you meet this Siren?
Oh, just passing through along the way by the market ward.
Oh, Chiron. Yes, okay.
Pardon me. Excuse me, I'm not from here.
We definitely have names that do not always roll off the tongue. But yes, would you like me to create the necklace for you, or do you...
Well, do you have perhaps an estimate for which I could get this strung? Just 5 simple dragon teeth, you see.
I could prepare that in... I could probably do so in about 5 hours. Have it prepared for you this evening, if you would like to pick it up before the gates are closed. And I can do that for you for 4 gold pieces.
All right. Okay. Well, I got some buddies. I'm not trying to hold them up too much. If I were to purchase perhaps a small kit to make this jewelry, I hope not to offend you with that question. What would that run me?
I would warn you that it is very easy to chip and break the teeth, so you will not be able to mount them. But if you would like to purchase the tools to make this happen yourself, I would be more than happy to sell it for you. And I believe a jeweler's kit is 25 gold pieces.
Well, Darren looks real sadly up at the jeweler and kind of wrings his hands and points his toes inward, and he says, "Gosh, well, me and my adventuring friends, we got supplies to worry about and stuff, and I really don't have all so much gold on hand. Is there any way I could pay you 2 gold, 3 even?"
I could have it done for you in 2 days for 2 gold. But it will be by an apprentice, and there will be more of a chance that we lose a tooth in the creation.
Well, how about that? I have extra. I got 1 extra just so you can try and figure out the best method for that. Then in 2 days, I understand. I'll be just fine with that. I did collect 6 dinosaur teeth at the time.
That means we're here for 2 days.
If we're here for 2 days and if I don't pick it up, then it's dragon teeth gone. It's fine. Or dinosaur teeth. It's not pressing.
They're going to pick up just a little kind of shard of what looks like clay pottery and taking out just kind of like an awl, are going to scratch a few marks into it, and they're going to hand you this little potsherd and say, well, I should be prepared for you in 2 days. Don't forget where I am, but when you return, it may be myself, and I may have an apprentice here, but they will recognize my mark and understand what product this will go to. But with any luck, we should have 5, and perhaps you will be lucky 6 of these teeth along a beautiful necklace.
I shall be very pleased with whatever you return to me, and you have my appreciations.
So you all are kind of directly below where the house of Okanawantamu is. You can pass back underneath the like overhead street to get closer to the harbor ward, and head back towards the Temple of Gond, where you can head up and into this area, or you can pass through the actual merchant's ward and kind of come up around a back area. Do you all have thoughts where you would like to go from here?
Could you please spell out that name of the merchant prince?
Oh, I mean, in the long run, just write it down for what you know. It
I
doesn't
got
matter.
like 4 different spellings now. I hear it different every
Perfectly fine.
time. Right on.
That's why 100% I think it should always be how you hear it and what you write down phonetically. That's why I wasn't trying to give you a hard time for not knowing that I said one name versus another. That's a lot of what I think the world would be like when you're trying to reference people. Because
Okay, that's
otherwise
fun.
it's going to be weird for people if you're like, and how do I spell your name? Kairon. Excellent, Chiron. And they're going to look at you like, why did you just write down my name? Are you some sort of spy? Guards, this is a spy from Please, somebody arrest this man. Um, that's one of those things. I think the world is more entertaining when you hear a name and you just have to repeat it phonetically.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, like, and if you've ever read like old like letters and stuff from like even like colonial times, you'll notice the spelling is all over the map. Like the same person will spell the same word like 4 different times in the same like couple of pages.
It's beautiful.
Um, but like also like as we're traveling as well, um, Jarek would spend some time to kind of like fill in Darren and Rin as well on kind of the because they had learned last time they were here about how like the merchant princes each control pretty closely like certain types of trade, and it's basically like operates kind of like as a cartel. Um, so Jarek would just kind of like with like help from like Taryn and Island filling in some of the details that they might have missed, like there's like about the 7 merchant princes and they each control kind of different things like um Joe
I can
Ball
do the
is
breakdown. Or yeah, go for what you have.
so what I have in my notes is Akin Afa is weapons, shields, and related gear. Uh, Ifan Talaro is beasts and training. I don't know if that's like all training or just like animal training. Jessamine is plants, poisons, and assassinations. Jobal guides and mercenaries. So like Eku worked for is like licensed by Jobal. So like when we hired her, she had to pay a fee to him. Quayothi is ales, wines, Tej, which I think is a kind of liquor, insect repellents and perfumes. Wakango, who is kind of the one we've met, is magic items and like magical lore. And then Xanthi is gems, jewelry, cloth, and some armor as well. Oh, armor, yeah. Aiken Alpha is weapons and shields. Xanthi is armor. That's what I have in my notes.
Crushed it. Yep.
Who was the one for magical items? Sorry.
Wakango.
Gotcha.
He's the one we're actually who had sent us out to try and find Vorn. That Jarek and Taryn have met before.
Magical items, what?
So after dropping off the teeth, what would you all like to do from here?
So is there any reason why we can't go visit Congo now?
Your mic's being a
technically
little silly.
speaking, yeah. Technically speaking, you all are headed in that direction right now. You've had two little like side tracks where it's like, hey, we're walking past where they sell armor. Let me run in here real quick and drop off my armor right now. We're walking past the place where they sell jewelry. Let me drop off these teeth and get those set. But part of why I say you're walking in the right direction is the way to actually get to all of the merchant princes are through those two entrances. You have to walk in through those gates to then basically backtrack through this whole like bean here into this gate, into this one, and then across to this one. So all of that is through that one access, or those two access points rather.
And as we've been kind of like walking along, have we been getting any particularly odd looks about the shield guardian kind of walking along with us?
Roll a perception check for me.
We've been in town a long time.
As far as things go inside of the Port Nyanzaru, you don't see anything that looks especially weird about how people are treating you. But this is also a place where you all walk shoulder to shoulder with velociraptors, with triceratops, with the I can't actually think of all of them. But the Deontu ones have the big like fin that's like across their spine. Like a lot of the dinosaurs that you all have actually been fighting and in bloody deadly battles with out in the jungle are tamed creatures here. When you all first arrived in town, Jarek and Island would remember that one of the first things Sindra did was hop into a taxi that was effectively pulled by a velociraptor. And that's one of the deadliest dinosaurs that you all have actually fought in this place. So most of these people are not unfamiliar with extremely large things getting in the way. um, you notice a few looks when people notice like what it is, but there's nobody who's gawking at you. There's nobody who's making a show of it. Um,
Okay, so I could see, yeah, so pretty cosmopolitan city. They're used to kind of weird things or unusual things that, without kind of blinking an eye, like.
Very been there, done that, like walking through Vegas.
I guess really I should put in we kind of skipped over the actual entrance through the gate. I think the actual guards of the city would have essentially made you declare what the intention was with Vorn. But any level of mentioning that you were taking Vorn to Wakanga is going to immediately neutralize that. Anybody who hears you mention the merchant prince of magic is going to immediately understand exactly what's happening.
Makes sense. Yep.
And that's the realistic place where there might have been like a little bit of general kind of grilling and recognition that you all were adventurers. But by the time you go through the gate and you're inside of it, again, I think most people are too busy to really recognize. This is very much like a New York City kind of thing where a lot of people are like speed walking. They could get hit by a car and continue the conversation. I don't think this is the place where Vorn is big enough to stick out. People might walk into him at time again because they're distracted, but in the long run, this is definitely the place to be with a creature like that.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and then to Rin's question, Jarek would kind of looking towards the others for confirmation. I see no reason we can't continue on and try and see him now if he's available.
Darren's good with it.
Do you all think you would have walked along the western wall and entered like the quickest way, or do you think you would head around Temple of Gond? I feel like on some level, we should at least like vaguely write in that Island is going to the Temple of Gond, and then we can just kind of write him off until he returns.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. So we would go that way, essentially drop him off if he wants to spend some time there, and then like say we'll give our regrets to Wakongo that he wasn't able to join us, but
Gotcha. So we'll go for that from the jewelry district. You'll head into the I think it's called the Royal Harbor, is basically this gate here, passing by the actual Temple of Gond. This is like a beautiful like collection of workshops. These are like inventors and creators, and it's just a very close association with Saloon, and where he has his contacts. I believe where he got Killen from was one of his kind of like friendly recruits from that area. But the entrance to the actual the Royal District is directly behind. You all can head up through there and have a slow, kind of winding walk as you pass around these different areas and slowly make your way higher and higher up as you progress kind of more and more to the south and kind of like southeast. The next temple you all are going to pass is the temple to Savress. At very least, I think Zeros and Rin would at least recognize this, even if people are not necessarily worshippers. But Savress is basically the temple for wizards, fortune tellers, and um, in kind of a generic way, like casters and diviners.
Are there anyone that looks to be a wizard around or worshiping?
Oh, I mean, that would definitely be a place to find many wizards.
I got I got gold pieces for whoever would steal spellbook.
You can't just. Oh my goodness. Should have been a rogue.
Yeah, I mean, I do shit for money, but I'm not gonna
Uh-oh.
steal from a magic user, especially not their spell books. That would just end badly for me.
as from what I recall, theft is dealt with fairly harshly in the city.
I won't. So we just did level 3. I added 2 spells. I want to add one more level 3 spell. Is there a good way to investigate the city for that or another or another spell or a scroll.
What are you looking for?
Animate the dead. Because I took Fireball and Vampiric Touch for my 3rd level spells, but then I thought it'd be really cool to talk to the dead ones of the wizard.
Mm.
I don't believe Animate Dead is going to give you the ability to speak with them.
Yeah, speak with that is different.
Or maybe it's Speak with Dead. Let me look at what I was looking at.
Trying to steal stuff with your -2 sleight of hand. What's the matter?
No, I'm not.
Oh, not me.
Yeah, it looks like Speak with Dead is I think it's only just a bard and a cleric spell.
No,
Unless
I
they added that on in Xanathar's or something.
have that. Oh, I have that option as a 3rd level necromancy.
Yeah, it's your subclass that gives you access to it.
Ah, I'm very special.
Roll a percentage die for me.
I'm very complicated. What's a percentage die?
My bad, D100. And roll a D4 for me. So after 15 minutes of looking around and kind of speaking to a few of the different wizards, you're going to eventually find a wizard who kind of looks at you with a little bit of a weird eye, kind of trying to make out things. Let me get an insight check from you. So it's pretty clear that he's surprised to see that you also are delving into such things as this. But it's clear to him, and he'll eventually kind of look to you, and I do indeed have the spell that you require. I have it created in a scroll. I would be willing to sell to you for 1,850 gold.
Wow.
That's where the percentage die would have been great to roll a 1.
Can I see the scroll? Like, is it visible?
You.
He will hold out the scroll and present it to you.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, I definitely don't have that. Would
It's like in Disco Elysium, just run away.
Sir, sir, I definitely don't have that, but I want this for a very noble cause. Would you take 50 gold?
You are far from correct on what your practices are going to cost you. And he's going to take the scroll away. And the moment his fingers touch the scroll, he's going to open up his fingers and it's going to disappear into thin air.
Neat.
The worst.
Your spell work is going to be far more expensive than this. It requires me to invest 500 gold in materials and 1 week of my time to create this scroll. If you would like to do the same when you know how to use the magic, you will be expending the same amount of effort as well as money to do. And while I understand that it is unfortunate that you cannot afford it, it is quite expensive to be a wizard. And he's just going to kind of reach out to pat you on the head in a very condescending way.
Oof.
Sick. So that was 1800. Is that what you said?
Yep, 1,850 gold.
All right, I'll be back, wizard.
He's going to open up his opposite hand, and there's going to be a beautiful piece of square parchment that it's cut, and perfection is astonishing how wonderfully done this is, and it's just going to say, Karasar the Wise, the creator of wonders and animator of the dead.
All right. Thank you.
Uh, Perhaps we can, Jarek speaking to Rin is like, perhaps Wakongo will maybe be able to point us to someone who can cast it for us. We want to possibly speak with this dead wizard.
Yeah, for in the meanwhile, anyway.
Yeah. Let's keep forging forward, and let's steal a bunch of shit and sell a bunch of shit. Or not steal, but come buy a bunch of stuff and sell.
It just fell off the
Come
truck,
back.
you know?
We've got 2 days. We have your silly necklace.
We don't have to wait for the necklace. Just in case.
Yeah, without reading it right now, I feel like somewhere in Animate Dead it says the creature can't actually speak. And I think that's where, again, Speak with Dead comes in.
So I do have the option for speak with dead. Is that, do we not want it to be an option?
Like available to you as a spell? Like to learn eventually?
Yeah. You grant the semblance of life and intelligence to a corpse of your choice. Oh, it's a corpse. That's not bones. Does that matter? The corpse must still have a mouth and can't be undead.
Yeah, usually I kind of rule it that it basically has to have an intact face and mouth, and also the throat. Like it has to have the voice box up to the mouth, basically.
Yeah.
This guy's too dead.
But in general, what I was meaning is that when you're looking for a spell, there's subtle differences, and spells don't usually step on top of another spell's toes.
Yeah, but understood. Neither one of those actually animate the dead or speak with the dead would be applicable.
Oh, Animate Dead, though. I mean, you're not going to make friends in a place like this, but when you're out in the jungle, you can have a nice horde of undead, and nobody's going to look twice because you're in the middle of a jungle.
Like a giant undead T-Rex fighting on your side would be so sick.
Don't believe your Animate Dead ever gets that powerful.
Oh,
So continuing on out of this ward, you all can leave the or left where my notes are, the Temple of Savress behind, as I think the first two villas on that very southern side of the Temple of Savress are the first of the Merchant Prince's villas. I think you will then walk to this next area. You will see three more villas on kind of the east northeast side. The center of those is the actual villa of Wakanda Tamu. And then directly across the street from him is the Golden Throne, and that is the palace where the seven all rule. But I forgot to share the docks, and this is a pretty similar view to what you all have, kind of overlooking the docks of the Port Nyanzaru. But that takes you all effectively to where you were going, that you are now right between the Golden Throne and the house of Wakandu Atamu.
classing up the music a little bit.
So Jarek will look for a kind of a guard or a attendant and ask them to relay to their master that their party, and Jarek will give them all their names. Are hoping to speak with Makongo and to tell him that we have been successful in what he asked us to do.
Actually meant to try to find the names of the servants that I gave you, and I forgot to do it. Don't think I wrote them down in my notes, so I'm not going to be able to do that full show all over again. But roll a perception for me, Jarek. So when you actually approach the gates to Wakanda's home, you are going to recognize the two who are on guard. Um, and they were um, perhaps not necessarily the people who you saw here the last time you came through, but at very least they are familiar to you in that you like recognize them from somewhere in the villa. And that wouldn't necessarily be surprising because they're not necessarily dressed as warriors so much as they have signs of being guards, and that they carry like more kind of display weapons than that they are like fighting weapons. But they will recognize as you kind of start to say these things and kind of nod to each other and look to you and let's see. Hmm, the master of the house is going to have to go to court here shortly. And while I am sure he would enjoy your presence to be able to say his hellos, he will be busy in the throne room for the rest of the day. But I believe your lady would still be quite happy to welcome you all in and show you the pleasures that you are due for your station. And they're going to open the front doors to you. You all will be kind of presented with that like initial veranda, and then inside of this first little room, there's a couple of doors, one on either side. Kind of oh, this direction is wrong right now. Shit. Technically, right now, east is up. So there's a door on the north side and there's a door on the south side. There's a door on the left is the north and the door on the right is the south side. And then straight ahead of you, you have this high open entrance area. um Actually, wait, I think that is roofed, my apologies. This high open like roofed area that's kind of draped with things and has like a little bit of a hanging garden inside of it. But they kind of welcome you into that, and as you kind of look beyond, you can kind of see through the whole center of the house. And on the opposite side, you can actually see the room where you all initially met Wakanda Atamu, before he actually recognized that you all were servants or working for Sindra Sylvain. You all were greeted in that first and kind of back room. But they will welcome you in, kind of instruct you if you would like. You are more than welcome to enjoy yourselves in the garden. If you would like to wait here, I can call for the lady and have her decide where she will meet you. Um, and he's. Let me get a wisdom check from everybody, and I want advantage. Actually, it can be insight. Let me get an insight check from everybody, and Taryn and Jarek will have advantage.
I have advantage on that as well.
You have proficiency.
Oh, sorry. Proficiency. Yep.
Yeah, your proficiency will be automatic. The advantage is for something else. It's out of your control.
Got it.
Wow, y'all were really low there.
Darren's not used to this rich a living.
I feel like 53 divided by 4 is not higher than 12. So I'm not going to continue to try to fail at that math. So he's going to kind of look to you all, and he's got kind of like a stern look about him. And it's a little perplexing at first, but after a few minutes go by, and you will eventually kind of see as Sindra is slowly making her way down these circular stairs. I guess she would probably be able to like call to you all from the second story above the actual stairwell here. And before she starts to actually walk down one of these little stairs that kind of hugs that edge. And very quickly, Darren and Rin, you are going to notice that her right hand is like not really moving. She kind of like almost lifted her shoulder and kind of set it onto the actual railing and is starting to like walk down the stairs with the hand just sitting there on the railing and kind of sliding on. And you'll notice that hand is just completely black. The other two of you will recognize that that is the hand where the necrosis has taken it, and she is using it much, much less than she was when you first met her some about 10 days ago. You all are kind of like 27 days into this venture at this point. As far as her overall dress goes, this is a young woman of 30 to maybe kind of 35 in her looks. She very quickly will catch Rin's eye, is another elf. She could then, you would notice, be hundreds of years old. Um, and she's wearing like a beautiful kind of purple gown that is very kind of gossamer flowing thin threads, and is more or less walking with a lot more confidence than somebody who is so clearly injured. But as she approaches, this is somebody who is effectively wearing very little and doesn't necessarily look like a wizard. But two of you already know that she is a extremely powerful mage in her own right. But when she kind of walks down, um, she is going to kind of coming down from the stairs above, look to all of you and welcome. It's a pleasure to see you again, Jarek. And Taryn, it's good to see you as well. And she'll kind of like look around for Valdis for a moment. I fear things have gone ill, but I understand you have found Rin and Darren. It is a great pleasure to meet you. And you're going to see just kind of like a twitch from her right shoulder before, with a little bit of thought, she's going to reach out with her left hand and kind of holding the palm almost towards her right side, or holding the back of her hand towards her right. She's like flipping her thumb down to reach out to you all to shake hands.
Darren will be plenty jovial enough and say, "The pleasure's all mine," and give like a tidy little bow whenever he carefully clasps her hand.
Oh, it's nice to meet you.
It is a pleasure to see you all returned. I see you have some good news, as she looks to Vorn.
Jarek nods. Was not easy, and well, as you can see, we suffered some losses, but we did manage to recover it, in no small part thanks to our new companions here. And he gestures towards Rin and Darren. Island is you'll be glad to know no ill has befallen him, but other business keeps him occupied for the time being. But he sends his regards.
She'll kind of nod with a little bit of a smile and kind of, that is wonderful news indeed. Um, would you all care for refreshments? Are you hungry? Are you tired? What what do you require for your day at present?
Yeah, proper food and drink would be a good start.
And she will look to the two guards who are still kind of present in the room. Um, Actually, wait, let me say that differently. She is going to look to two corners of the hall to the north and is going to call out two names. Um, Let me actually go to my cheat sheet of names for this one. And she's going to call out Elaratel and Olif. If you two would be so kind, have the chef bring out the meal for our friends here, and we will take it in. Hmm. Would you all prefer to lounge or sit at a table?
After she like looks to the corners and turns back to look at the group, she actually catches Darren like mid stride on his way to the nearest chaise lounge for a little.
Oh, that's how I psyched myself out. I have the top layer still on this.
I find a settee next to Darren on the chaise lounge.
Yes, I wouldn't mind getting off my feet for a bit. Jarek will uh, follow their example.
So effectively, we're going to throw that into the couch room there. So you all can kind of be like greeted into this little room on that north side and enjoy some settees as well as chases. And when Sindra kind of walks in, she's going to do a quick little flourish of her left hand as there's just a little kind of like glimmer of light before she sits down and just seems to almost float in the air as if she were sitting inside of a seat. But otherwise, her gown is draped down as if gravity was still pulling it, but her body is supported.
Neat.
And within a few minutes, far less time than it would ever take to prepare this meal, Jarek and Taryn, you would be familiar that um, these people are very nice to their servants and at the same time still very opulent. This is a house where the cook is essentially preparing a meal for every half hour of the day. And as they start to bring it in, you are going to be presented with this meal that can feed probably about 50 people. And they are throwing away these meals every half hour of the day. This is again a very weird place to see this shock of absolute wealth and the absolute poverty of a place like Maller's Throat. And Watamu is one of the best of the merchant princes. But as everything goes by, they are going to just cover this table in different goods. They're going to bring in carts with different desserts and sweets. These will be some of the few times that you can ever get like actual sugared products. And effectively, this room is going to be turned into a like smorgasbord of food. Whatever you might think of, they probably already have it prepared. And like you'll see like 5 different hams, and each one is cooked to a different level. There's like steaks set up in the same way, like beef. Everything is prepared en masse, and everything is prepared with different levels of actual kind of ways that you might enjoy it. And that's part of their opulence. And Sindra will sit and she'll kind of nibble at a few things. But overall, she's kind of like giving you all some time to enjoy yourselves. She'll every once in a while kind of raise a glass of wine to her face without touching it. Obviously, using Mage Hand to someone familiar with magic. And here and there, she's just kind of sitting silently, kind of waiting for everybody to catch up on things. But as you all get closer and closer to finish, she'll start to ask you if you would care to kind of share some of the stories of your travels, and most importantly, what you have figured out about the death curse. Eku is in a permanent loop where if she goes to Mumbala, she will lose all of her memories of being there. So you can't actually complete the quest with Eku. She will always ask you, fulfill your bargain. We are meant to go to Mumbala. And she'll go there and lose her memory. And when you leave, she'll slowly get it back. And eventually she'll then ask, remember your bargain. You agreed that we would go to Mumbala. So that's kind of one of those things. Like that was the like subtle Easter egg for Jarek when you all like left her, was this idea that you now have that as kind of a problem ahead of you. Is there a solution to help her? You've witnessed one loop of her going there and seemingly not been able to help her.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I had Jarek, like I described Jarek kind of like furrowing his brow a bit when she first said it, like confused because like we've been to Mbala, and then remembering after a second, like, oh right, she doesn't remember, and yeah.
So that's one thing that he wants to leave out with Sindra. Unless Taryn wants to go otherwise, I think that's perfectly fine to basically leave out Eku's kind of mishap in Mumbala.
And I'm on board with making our whole Vorn disguise deception thing kind of sound a little more heroic than it might have played out. Exactly.
We simply and easily tricked the goblins into giving us the amulet. Don't ask any other questions.
Mission accomplished. And well
Okay, but
taken.
did we die?
Did you end up with any other thoughts, Chris?
No, I'm fine with us just withholding Eku's aggression in Mambala.
So then from my perspective, that means you all will be sharing the current map of Chalt with Sindra.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that because I think Island was actually keeping it, but we could, when we dropped him off at the temple, we could ask him to let us bring it so we can show her. Yeah, Jarek doesn't see any reason to keep that from her, but again, he'll see, depending on what the others think.
Let me go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna agree with Gary or Justin. I don't see any reason to withhold the map.
Let me get a group charisma check here.
Come on!
Jarek's dealing with some like indigestion because he felt kind of guilty about like knowing all this food might be going to waste, so he kind of like ate like he kind of had to eat for two. So he's not feeling so charismatic right now.
Got the meat sweats.
So in the actual conversation, kind of recounting things, there's certainly going to be some more and less interesting portions of a lot of the conversation. Um, Sindra will kind of be concerned about the happenings and the findings of um, Camp Righteousness. And she's going to look to Taryn. May I inspect the jar that you have found there? And let me get a perception check from you, Taryn, as you go through your bag. It's going to have to be good enough. It's not a 1. Um, Taryn, many weeks ago, you were given different gifts for the years of your life that you sacrificed. And it's been kind of comical that you guys have now gotten back without you actually looking into this a little bit deeper. You should see in your inventory 2 different packages that I think are labeled right now. Packages from
Nanny poo
Nanny
poo.
Poo Poo.
Yeah.
So I think if you unwrap those as you are getting the jar out for Sindra, you are going to see that one of those is a healer's kit, and another one of those is 2 healing potions. But she'll inspect the jar, um, finds it curious, finds it a little bit funny, and um, I don't think you've used it today, so she's just going to look at it and this can make whatever you like. And she's just gonna say mayonnaise.
Yeah.
And then once it fills up with mayonnaise, she's gonna hand it back to you. Just
She
kind
doesn't
of
take no
dipping like
scoop or nothing.
no, the littlest bit of a fingertip into it, and she's just gonna kind of lick it, and so you
All right.
now have like 5 pounds of mayonnaise inside of there.
Darren
Yeah.
makes a face.
Thank you for the mayonnaise.
Um, and I think you all have gotten over everything else that you found inside of Righteous. Um, when you all kind of
Oh,
recount with
there was the filter of love too. If you want that.
gotcha.
You
Oh no, I meant more like her ability to identify stuff for you.
Oh, all right.
Um, when you all get to Vengeance, she'll be a little concerned for a while, and I do believe there have been more movements of the Order of the Gauntlet. Perhaps that same party that you assisted has been able to return. I assume perhaps that is why they have increased their activity in the town. It may be possible that you could find them in the next few days, heading back out. And that's just going to be one of those first little clicks where she's like kind of like pushing you, like, you are planning to leave again, right? Like, your job isn't finished. Um, Going over Mumbala, she's a little curious, not necessarily super curious about things, but it just seems kind of interesting. And she'll give you all the last name of the actual crustacean people, in that those were the Aldani people, and that the Aldani are rumored at this point to be extinct, and kind of have like a little bit of a hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I'm pretty sure they just avoid humanity after they were nearly wiped out by humans. Perhaps there are many things worth accomplishing that a return to Oralunga would be a wise choice. Um, and I think that's going to be a point where she kind of focuses a little bit deeper. And if you really had artists with you, it is unfortunate that you would have let him go. I understand it would have been dangerous, but that is a valuable person to come across. And I don't know what the proper choice would be. There is no simple solution in many things. But his ring, well, it is done. Your decision is made, and I respect what you chose to do in the moment. Be weary that there are more than just the Zentarum and the Frost Giants searching for him. And I might be so kind as to give you a much greater reward if this time you decided to relieve him of his ring.
So not even returning him, just the ring?
She's going to do a few manipulations of the kind of weave with her left hand as you see little like sparks and glitters in through the air. And you'll watch as her right hand is almost lifted up above and kind of like moved side to side, like as the palm kind of moves. And you can almost hear like the crinkle of dried flesh, almost like paper being folded. And she kind of looks to her hand, blackened and immobile. I would be surprised if that ring were not powerful enough to keep even this creeping death at bay. He is but a human, and he has lived many hundreds of years with that beautiful object upon his finger.
Hmm.
But it seems from our meeting that he perhaps views this ring as a more a means to an end. If suppose if we were able to assist him in what he was hoping to accomplish, he may be willing to part with it without unnecessary violence.
I fear the decision may be more complicated than you understand. His love was of our people, and she will live much longer than he could ever assume. And I believe I will be gone well before he would see her dead.
I see. In that case, perhaps he will not part with it willingly. It was complicated given that he more or less saved our lives.
My apologies. I do not mean to harp upon my weaknesses. I simply wanted to remind you that with every passing day, I have vast sums of wealth that will be lost if I cannot find a way to stop this. And I have more reason to offer more and more for opportunities that might keep me from the life I hope to live.
Jericho nod. Of course, I understand. No offense.
But regardless, the Temple of Orlanga has been lost to many people for quite some time. If you return, there is supposed to be a diviner of some power who would be capable of answering questions of great importance. And at least you have the location. You have seen it from the hills of Mombala. And she's a little curious as she's kind of studying um, the flying heart or the floating heart. And as she's kind of looking over the location of Omu, she does not seem nearly as worried about anything relating to Vorn and the actual Batiri. Um, but she is pretty obvious as you all are recounting that area, where she kind of chuckles towards you all, and you do not have to hide from me those things which feel embarrassing after they are finished. You have lived, and you are successful. Few dealings with goblins are anything less than chaotic. Do not forget that I have adventured for many hundreds of years before this became my life. So I think with a little bit of kind of exploration and discussion about Omu, you all will have some idea that it's kind of rumored or feared that Rosni actually fled to Omu during the fall of Mesro. And to kind of tie some things together, Mesro was the location where artist Kimber's wife was when Mesro was destroyed. Some people in the know understand that Mesro wasn't destroyed, it disappeared. And that was the same location where, during the spell plague, Rosni was using all of this undead that still wanders around Chalt, and he was assaulting Mesro. And this was when the spell plague kind of great timing. I added this one. I was trying to listen to it during the break.
Oh, do you want me to
Um,
pause it?
no, you're good. It's
Right on.
just fucking hilarious as I'm recounting like this part of the story. So Rosny had his entire undead army, which now covers this entire continent, assaulting that tiny city of Mesro, which, just to like point it out, it's that northeast side near Kitcher's Inlet. Um, and during the spell plague, Rosny lost his power to control the undead. This was one of those moments in time where magic ceased to work for pretty much everybody who manipulated the weave. Um, Part of that would have been the disappearance of artist Kimber's wife. Part of that was the disappearance of the city, and part of that was Rosny fleeing from his own creations as the undead became wild in Chalt. So having the location of Omu is on some level recognizing where Rosni fled. And that is one of those things where there's a little bit of that's definitely a certain level of like what we have to do is perhaps we are now looking to see or find what Rosni is up to, and maybe he is the person who is manipulating death in this way.
Can I ask just a quick clarifying question?
100% go for it.
So, Omu is the location where Rosny has possibly fled while he was assaulting Mesro. What is Chalt in that?
Chalt is this entire peninsula. This whole map is the map of Chalt.
Gotcha.
So Omu is way down in the south. I'm sorry, those white things are so much easier to see, like when I'm creating the map, than when they show up here. But Omu is somewhere in that location. That was pointed out to you all by the purple fairy dragon, and effectively, Eku can confirm it, but she was still adamant that you all don't belong there. But it's somewhere between the Valley of the Lost Honor and the Peaks of Flame. And those were all things that are vaguely known to Syndra when she passed on this map to you all. And this is again like kind of the explorations of all of her different adventures, more or less combined to give whatever knowledge she knows to the most recent people to leave Port Nyanzaru. And then again, Mesro was being surrounded, and when Rosny lost control of the undead, he had to flee because it was just him with no power and all of that undead. And it's rumored that he went to Omu. Far as the flying heart goes, I think she would be able to share with you some of the most ancient people of this land believe in Ubataha as um, the element of life, the element of the earth in this land. And that is supposed to be the heart of Ubatoa, floating beyond the Aldani Basin. It's perhaps something of importance. You will have to decide. But it seems more a ancient magic than perhaps something that will affect the death curse in itself. So I think I've kind of hit like the little like side quests that I'm going to pass out to you like at the end of this, um, which are just things that you all will kind of have like other side options to do. But as far as things go, does anybody have any questions for Syndra?
Got one more clarifying question. Sorry, go ahead, Jarek.
No, you can go ahead first.
Just one other thing. Artist Kimber's wife disappeared, and somebody else disappeared, and one other event.
Well, Mesro is a place. It was like a fortified city.
Right. Okay,
And
that was what you had said disappeared after that.
Artist Kimber's wife was in Mesro.
Gotcha. And Artist
So
Kimbers is artist that we were in our first session.
Yep, he was the Iceman. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm good.
So I guess Jarek would just be kind of asking, like, so do you think perhaps that Rasny was experimenting, trying to find a way to regain control over the undead, and do you believe that Death Curse may have been some offshoot or side effect of that? Is that what we're thinking? And with regard to Mesro,
Oh, wait, hold up then. Wait for that question. If you've got to write it down, write it down. But I think what is most troubling about this location and the ancient presence of Rasni is no one was ever able to confirm that they were to end his life, that his undead consumed him, or that he was ever stopped. There's a power in this land that powerful liches are even losing their ability to fill their own phylacteries, as death itself is seeming to be consumed within the land of Chult. And it is extending through the entirety of Eber. There's nowhere for us to run. I have gone to other planes and still watched as I was consumed by this plague.
Well,
And what was your question about Mesro then, Jack?
So I guess like do when Mesro disappeared, she had said that it was under siege by Rasni and his undead. Do people believe that it disappeared perhaps as some sort of defense mechanism?
I must apologize there. The idea that it disappeared um, is certainly this idea that it was defensive to flee the undead. But it is no more than a theory. There is nothing to confirm this. There are just many who believe that even at the peak of his power, Rosny was incapable of destroying it. Um, and this is one of those points where I think the Flaming Fists were the most recent people who actually claimed to have discovered the ruins of Mesro. And this was but a few years ago and is actually a large part of why Baldur's Gate is so interested in Chult as well as Fort Balerion, and why they've moved so much of the Flaming Fists into Chult is that they think they found Mesro. So that location there is a location that's basically shared from the Flaming Fists discovering it. Kind of what I was sharing with you is effectively a learned wizard saying, well, I've got this kooky conspiracy theory that Mesro is too powerful to be destroyed. And that's like all of the proof. It's just this idea that Mesro was a powerful city in its time. And for such an ancient, powerful, magical culture to be destroyed by somebody who was simply wielding the power of death, um, it just seems like off. But realistically, Syndra doesn't really have any other information there. It really should be taken kind of like that conspiracy theory where it's like, I just like to imagine magic users are more powerful than people who are swinging a sword.
Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah, kind of what he was trying to get at with the question was like, okay, so assuming for the sake of argument that it disappeared and it wasn't simply destroyed, is like your theory that it disappeared because it was like to, escape the attacks, I guess. Not so
And
much that like
one of the best things backing up this kind of theory that it disappeared defensively is actively that artist Kimber for hundreds of years has still been searching for his wife. If she got killed, it's one of those things where people are like, look, man, it's been 6 months. It's time for you to go date again. It's been a year. It's time for you to go date again. It's been 60 years. It's time for you to date again. It's been a half a millennium. It's time for you to date again. And he's still searching for his wife. And that's kind of one of those things where maybe she won't necessarily say it with all that much gusto, but there's a certain level of it's like, if Artis is still searching for her, that only makes me feel more confident that there's a reason that he's searching instead of getting over it.
right, or perhaps simply his delusion is that powerful. But we no way to know that for sure right now.
So theoretically, without any other questions specifically for her, we can kind of just move towards like this kind of end of day where Wakando Tamu would actually return to the villa and be a little bit surprised to have you all there. He would kind of walk in, you all would see just this generally like old, really dark skinned man who's kind of wearing like reds and purple and kind of has all kinds of like embellished cloth about him, big like braided beard, and looking like tired and kind of downtrodden for the day, seeming like he's mentally exhausted. And the moment he sets eye on Vorn, he's gonna turn into a little child. And you're going to see as this man's kind of like speaking to some of his servants, slowly making his way down the actual halls of the villa, getting closer to you all. Once he actually gets kind of to the edge of the villa, kind of for or into the edge of that room, almost like he gets weak in his knees for a moment, he's just going to brace the wall and, "Ku, my friends, you have been successful? Is this you were able to return Vorn?" And he's immediately just going to walk up to the creature and just hands all over it. He's not trying to like get into it. He's not trying to do like anything. He wants to feel that it's real, and he's groping this metal being at this point. Um, so, any thoughts as Wakanda Atamu initially comes into his room and almost just as quick is now ignoring you all?
Well, Darren doesn't mind that he's ignoring ignoring the group at all, and like as he's so excited, tells the shield guardian guy like to hold both of his thumbs up, like heck yeah, like a little display of that he does move and is real, and also thumbs up.
That is a most wonderful. I. And he's going to look to Jarek. Taryn takes a moment to look around for Valdis and Island and Killen, and he'll kind of see Zeros. You have lost half of your party. I am very sorry, but you are quite powerful to have returned with half of your party.
Jarek nods, and yes, it was recovery was not without cost, but
When you say cost, he's going to lift his right hand, and as he snaps his finger, he's going to catch a book in his hand. "I promised you a spell book. Here you are."
is he holding that out to someone specifically, or
I think at this point, recognizing Jarek at least is the responsive one, yeah, he'd be handing it out to you.
What's in the book?
What's in the book?
What's in the book?
does Jarek actually? Me, Justin, can't recall what our actual agreement was, but does Jarek recall if this seems like what they had agreed on?
Yeah, so the initial quest is for this spell book. It is effectively 15 randomly generated spells between level 1 and level 6.
Ooh.
Oh, right, was this the wizard spell book?
I feel like he had the wizard's journal.
Okay.
I don't see anything in the actual campaign about this being the wizard's spell book. Um, but as far as I can tell, everything says that that wizard died with all of his gear and it's all gone. Um, the journal that helped Wakanda find where Vorn was and the idea was essentially all that remained. So he's going to kind of look to you with this spell book, and when Rin kind of looks at him like all excited, um, "Hello," and he'll reach out with his right hand to shake your hand, and he'll say, "I am Wakandu Otamu. I am the master of magics in these lands. You are a practitioner, and you are learning. You seem skilled enough. Excellent. You are interested in this? Have they agreed that you will gain for this wonderful creature? And he'll point over to Vorn.
I did not hear the last bit. Can you repeat it?
My bad. He's basically like introducing himself and then kind of looking around to everybody as he asks you, has everyone agreed that you're going to benefit from bringing him this creature?
Oh, I don't know. I think we probably need to huddle on that. Is that is everyone good with that?
Darren shrugs. I don't know no magic.
Yeah, Tyron is the same. We would basically just be. I mean, that book is wasted on me anyway, so.
I think perhaps we were hoping for something a bit more of utility to all of us, although it is certainly a
Ren kicks Jared.
perhaps if you would give Rin time to examine the book and perhaps um copy something she finds useful, or
There are many things that power can be granted for, but I must share with you that to take this power would be plenty to pay for it all. I do not have time to share it for free. Your quest was agreed upon, but I could also be inclined to gift you all rewards in your own fashion. But it would not be so powerful as the gift within these pages. And he's just going to flick his fingers, and the book's just going to turn into smoke and disappear.
Oh,
Oh, but Jared, I protect you.
There were
My-
many beautiful spells in there, my dear. It is a great loss for you.
oh no.
I hate you guys.
But let me see. Well, would everybody agree that it would be better for everyone to enjoy something than one person to enjoy everything? And he's going to wave his hand like across all of the food on the table.
Well, gosh, now I'm conflicted.
Of course, it sounds amazing. Let's get gifts for everyone.
I And he's going to reach out his hand towards Darren.
But Jarek owes me a spell book and a scroll.
It's a good spell book, but it's also randomly generated.
Mm.
So Darren, he's looking for the amulet.
Darren's all like, "Oh yeah, of course, totally." And he like, without hesitation, takes it off his neck and like respectfully presents it.
So he'll kind of like take it from you and just with like a couple of like polishes of his thumb, exhale on it, wipe it off on his shirt a little bit to kind of shine it, and then he's going to look to the creature, place it into its chest, and then as he removes it, he puts it back over his head, and he's going to say, Vorn, would you be so kind as to lift this table up for me? And kind of like skips and jumps as Vorn lifts the table, and he looks around to you all like, you are all most beautiful people. And then he's going to kind of reach up and taking a moment to think, does a few flourishes with his hands as he starts to form like a black void, and it like swirls with purple between his hands, and this circle kind of gets into like a little tumult as it starts to pull air in through the room, and there's like a strong breeze being pulled into it, and then he's going to throw it towards Vorn, and it's going to dissipate, and you're going to see as Vorn kind of like glows a dark like blackish purple, almost like just like a little like glaze across the outside of his metal, and you can see that right now whatever spell he just cast, Vorn is like holding this magical power inside of him. And Watanabe is going to look at you. He's like, yes, this is most wonderful. Thank you all so much. Now for gifts. Who should be first?
Darren's little hand goes right up in the air.
Okay, little one. You are a farmer, or would you like a hoe to till the earth?
Thank you very kindly, most appreciated. However, I am much better as a ranger or hunter.
Oh, do you enjoy the use of bows? Do you like to shoot arrows or with knives? Do you stab people? How do you like to hunt?
I am partial to the from the distance with a bow.
Excellent. And just me as a little aside to you, I have not finished both yours as well as Darcy's gifts here. But he is going to clasp his hands together, and as he kind of like takes a few moments, you're going to see as kind of twisting his fingers, he's going to form like this little leather quiver that will mount at the side, and he's going to kind of reach out to hand this to you, and with proper practice and mentally becoming together with this, you will never lack for an arrow again, but you will have to expend more of your effort to command this magic. But you will be able to do many beautiful things with it. And this is going to be where I definitely do not have these all created in D&D Beyond yet. So I am about to send this to you just in Discord, and I'm going to drop it in the Sages and Slayers so everybody can kind of see like the start of what these all do.
Hype.
So as he hands it to you, he's basically going to explain that you can, again, what I'm saying is as the bonus action, you can draw an arrow. There doesn't have to be arrows in it for you to do this. If you have normal arrows in it, you can always draw a normal arrow for free. But effectively, you can draw a magical arrow. So that will bypass physical resistances, but it doesn't necessarily do a +1 or +1 damage at this point. Um, but you can draw a magical arrow that does either piercing or bludgeoning damage for a bonus action. Or you can draw a magical arrow that is effectively a beacon of light that you can shine forward or, again, shoot forward. And then the third option is that you have a sending arrow that you can shoot at a friendly, sending a message through the arrow. That one will not deal damage, though.
Sick.
And then again, part of what I haven't actually finished is each of these has levels. So once I get past like you and Darcy, you'll actually see what some of these little side quests are for each of you to try to accomplish. And those will be the type of things where you can slowly get this to being a more and more epic magical item. In general, you'll kind of see like they're simpler things to do, but you have to do them in order, and they're very particular about what you have to do. But I think in general, in my notes, I had in mind that like your second tier was going to be something like either giving you +1 on saving throws, as well as AC. And it would be the type of thing where you're going to have to kill 5 enemies while right next to someone and next to an enemy, but you have to shoot at the enemy who your friendly person is fighting. So if that makes sense, basically most of the first tiers are usually you need to do something that endangers yourself but engenders yourself to your party.
Yeah, flanking as a
And
ranger, I
that's
get you.
well, it's not even necessarily flanking, but it's one of those things where it's like you have to be in the thick of the battle
Mhm.
and recognize that giving up some of yourself is often how you win. And almost all of the second tiers are kind of designed around that little level. But once you get that second tier, it'll level up, get this next ability. Then there's a third and a fourth tier for all of them. But everybody will kind of get initially their second tier quest with it. Um, so with that, again, still like an idea. That one's going to be mostly different magical arrow options. And that was part of what I was trying to play with is whether I wanted to do like second tier as like an AC and a saving throw or whatnot versus just all arrows. And that's again one of those things where a lot of stuff is very open to you all to actually have the conversation with me too. Um, but for that, that is the start of yours. When he hands it to you, he will name it for you. This is the quiver of Zeltan. He was an ancient archer in these lands and was quite a powerful mage in the uses of his own enchantments to make something so useful for one as yourself who would hunt the most dangerous of creatures.
Oh, Darren's eyes just get real big and he says, "Well, this has got to be the nicest thing I've ever had before. Thank you so much."
So I think he'll then go to Rin and kind of looking at her, almost like teary eyed, kind of looking to his wrists, like, you're going to pull the spell book back out, aren't you? You've got the spell book still. Like, you want to get. He's not going to pull the spell book out for you. He's going to draw his fingers together and he's going to pull a little red rose that he kind of pulls out of his fingers. And he's going to hand you just from the stem of this beautiful little red rose, about like 6 inches of stem, and then the red rose at the top of it, and he'll reach it out to you to hand it to you.
Mm,
What did
I
Herbert?
feel like this is gender appropriation, but I'll
Uh,
accept your rose.
this is not a gift of love. This is a gift of power. Are you going to take it from him? I think I heard you say you accept it.
I don't, well, see, so I'm really, um, Ren just looks at the rose.
If you would be so kind as to share your blood with the thorns, you might find this to be a most precious gift that is quite delightful for any of the most intriguing of casters.
Ren looks super disappointed.
Oh no.
Like she looks so disappointed. She has teary eyes.
Jarek's gonna kind of look at her and be like, "I promise if I find another wizard spell book in our travels, I will make sure to give it to you."
Ren just kind of looks at Jarek. All right. Well, sorry. I reluctantly accept the rose.
When you take it from him, it's going to draw blood from you. You'll lose 1 hit point. It won't matter in the least bit. As it starts to like flow from your finger, it's going to actually be drawn into the rose. The rose is going to start to almost like grow across your hand until it starts to turn into a gold, and this liquid gold is starting to draw up your hand, up your arm, and that as it kind of gets towards your shoulder, the last of like the actual rose, like the red rose, is gone. And as this gold starts to flow up your shoulder, everybody will see as it goes up your neck across your face. And as it gets to your forehead, it's going to form into a diadem with 5 rubies in different parts of it, as well as a red rose kind of growing right from your forehead. And he's going to look to you, and when you take the time to become one with this, you will find yourself more intelligent than you are now. Not to say that you need to become more intelligent, but you will find that it is still true. Uh, and anyone who would dare to attack you will feel the pain of the rose defending you. And the initial abilities of this. And again, we can talk about yours as well. I only talked to you like right before the session, so I continued to create with it what I was already planning for you. But he'll name this for you. This is the Diadem of the Rose. And at its initial level, you have +1 intelligence up to a maximum of level 20. If you take damage from a melee attack, any attacker takes 1 piercing damage for each hit die of damage dealt to you.
Okay.
And again, I don't actually have the quests decided for yours. Those are kind of the weird things where they're like almost more difficult than thinking up the actual like abilities. But I was thinking among the things that this would do for you is the second level is actually giving you access to the wrist pocket spell, where you would be able to store your spell book in interdimensional space. In part, this is because realistically, being a wizard in this place, your spell book's in constant danger. It's constantly raining. That should destroy a spell book in a matter of days. So the first level on some level was going to be giving you access to wrist pocket. Effectively, that is for free, just as part of a level. The second level, the diadem is going to increase, or rather tier 3, the diadem is going to increase that to a +2 intelligence up to a maximum of 22. And that is far more powerful than it may sound, because everything that you do is 5% more likely. That's one of those big things, and saves become much less likely. That's very big when it's also not from a weapon. It's hard to necessarily say that for like someone who's new, but the way that can potentially stack and how it's given to you is part of why I think that's a really powerful ability. Um, and then the final tier of this was that when you get hit by an attack, any creature within 10 feet of you, if it hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to push that creature 5 feet away from you. And when it hits you, you will now do a d4 piercing damage for each hit die damage that it does, returning more and more damage with the rose. And this will take away a creature's reaction until the end of its next turn. Effectively, that gives you a way. If something is ever close enough to hit you, you can not only push it away from you, but you can also run away from it.
Okay. That's excellent.
So again, these are very up to you all to like have conversations with me about further ideas on how you want these things to adjust. But again, I am attempting to create these very particularly for your characters.
Yeah, and just for like for frame of reference, like I think the normal human maximum is, or normal player character maximum on an ability is 20. So you would essentially have like superhuman intelligence eventually at 22.
Exactly. Yep. And that's one of those things where like a wand of the war mage, In general, I'm only going to give out like +1 weapons, especially in a lower level campaign. Um, and that's one of those things where by getting a +1 from just having the intellect go to a higher number allows you to potentially get a +2 by getting something else that does it as well. So that's 100% part of the point of that is giving that access via intellect instead of something else. So he'll then go over to Terran, and kind of overlooking Terran, he'll kind of looking around your you are a very trustworthy fellow, a bit of a banker. You need places to store things, correct? Safely move your gold from place to place.
So, like, raise an eyebrow. I mean, that is always a plus, but I mean, I'm not a banker per se.
He's gonna chuckle a little bit to you. He's like, you seem to favor. I think right now you have 2 short swords, or is it a short sword and a dagger right now?
I should have a short sword and 2 daggers, actually.
Gotcha. So he's gonna kind of like look over your person, and he's like, you might find these are far more useful. Um, and in the long run, part of why I want everybody to see all of these is I do want them to feel balanced for everyone. Um, I got Chris's responses last, but this was one of the things that I was thinking about for you kind of the longest for like weeks here. So he is going to take 2 golden rings from his fingers, and kind of just like take them, and they're going to turn into a single ring when he kind of like touches them back together. And he's going to hand this ring over to you, and he will name it for you. He's this, and again, it's 1 ring. This is Serjong's rings. I believe you might find these quite wonderful. And he's going to hand you, again, the 1 ring.
I'll take it and look at it. Like, how'd you do that?
I assure you, that is the magic of the creation itself. You will be able to do very wonderful things with these. And as he described, you will be able to use these with a little bit of effort. You can summon the blades to yourself with the simple thought and use of your mind. Um, I think for what it's worth, you all can instantly attune to these items, so you can start to play with these. But basically, while you are wearing this ring, you wear 2 rings, 1 on each hand. When you use the ring to summon the actual blade, you are going to be able to return these daggers to your hands as long as they are within 10 feet of you. You can also use that same, like another bonus action, to turn them into light sources, which also makes it very easy to hide as they are karambits.
Cool.
My bad, I didn't actually drop all of the pictures. So there's what the claw looks like. Um, so you can summon these within 10 feet of you. You can turn them into light sources. Oh, my bad. Summon them within 15 feet of you. And when you use them for climbing, you have +2 to acrobatics or athletics. Obviously, you're probably better at acrobatics, but it doesn't mean that the athletics isn't necessarily useful. And then when you make attacks with these, they are finesse weapons and they are light. You can choose whether to do slashing or to do piercing, and they do 2d4 damage. And then, as examples of how these level up. So, his quest is to Oh wait. Yeah, okay. His first quest is to disarm 5 traps, simply basically with these like on his person. And that is going to give you the ability to take the rings and basically touch them together, and using an action, you can extend them out into an 8-foot pole. Um, Doing that, you can also use an action to return them to rings already on your fingers. But effectively, like that first tier is that very simple. You have access to um, what is my version of the 10-foot pole, because you're a little bit shorter. 8-foot gives you enough reach. The next tier that you will do is you kill 3 creatures in a single strike in 3 different combats. So I think it should be kill 1 creature in a single strike during 3 different combats, but that's what it's going for. When you do that, these will become magical weapons, giving you a +1 to hit and +1 damage. Effectively, that basically means you have to crit.
Yep.
Or we could run into a few Sturges. Those are pretty easy to kill in
Yeah.
one
I
hit.
might have to actually put in there like it's like a critical kill, basically, because that's the idea. 3 should be rare enough that it takes you some time to do, but also it's the type of thing that it kind of, yeah, I think it kind of has to include that. But that's where, again, these are like being theory crafted. And then the final quest is that you basically will use your cunning action 3 times in 5 separate combats. Basically, it's saying if you reposition the fuck out of a combat, you're going to accomplish this. And when you do that, you are basically going to gain the ability that when you use your cunning action to disengage, you can still attack with both weapons.
That is awesome.
So just as like a reminder to Darcy and Cameron, like that's like the same end game that I'm hoping to get to with your items, as far as how like the quests work and the idea of like how powerful I want them to be.
Oh, this is pretty cool. I got some ideas I want to talk to you about.
So that's also the crown of the rose, and then just the picture for the quiver of Zelton.
Nice.
Okay.
And then he's going to turn to Jarek, and he's going to hand you a small red handle. As you look over it, it seems to be inset with beautiful gems, perhaps pearls, perhaps diamonds. It's got like a beautiful, almost like ruby interlay to it. But looking over it, it's probably going to seem a little bit weird because it's nothing. It's a handle.
Jarek will, yeah, kind of looking at it, he'll take it, kind of uh, nod gratefully, and yeah, looking it over, maybe turning it over in his hands a couple times, and then kind of just look back up at Wakanga. Maybe a kind of
Uh,
slightly quizzical look on his face.
as you spend a few moments kind of like playing with it, you can kind of feel the magic starting to like flow through you, and it's very clearly a magical item. It's very clearly ancient, and you're just going to hear a voice within your head that says, "Huh, hello. You won't be in danger today." While you are attuned to this, you will have advantage on initiative rolls, and you cannot be surprised. except when you are incapacitated by magical sleep. If you are just sleeping and that weapon is on you and you are attuned to it, it will wake you up every single time. Only you. When you draw the weapon, you can use a bonus action to decide what kind of weapon you are going to draw. You can choose a kukri, doing a d6 slashing damage, finesse, and it's light. You can do a broadsword, which is a broad sex, is just a different kind of sword. D6 damage, piercing, finesse, and light. Or you can do a cutlass, a d8 slashing, and it's finesse. Or an arming sword, d8 piercing, and it's finesse.
So Jarek will, as he like hears his voice in his head, will kind of look around, and then kind of seeing that nobody else seems to have reacted, he'll kind of look back towards Wakanga, kind of nod again, maybe like a little more deeply, and thank you.
You are most welcome, my friend. And again, to kind of give you the rest of it, your first quest is to swap the actual weapon profiles during combats, and basically get a kill with one weapon and then get a kill with the next weapon. When you do that, you will eventually 5 different combats. When you do that, you will eventually turn it into a +1 weapon for hit and damage. The next level will be to use that new feat that I've started to give you all 5 times. Sacrificing yourself to protect others. And what that will give you is the new ability to select a Zweinhander as the actual sword. Um, Anybody who doesn't know, this is effectively a great sword. It will do 2d8 slashing damage and is finesse. As well, it will give you the ability that while you are wielding the Zweinhander, you can have +1 AC, and any ally within 5 feet of you can gain +2 AC while taking the dodge action. And if you are basically flanked by them and another creature, you gain advantage on that other creature. Effectively, um, like the way you use a Zweinhander is it was like a bodyguard's way to protect somebody of value. And it's like just big flourishing swings. And this person behind you kind of follows your every move, almost like with a hand on like the small of your back, so they can feel where your muscles are going. And you become kind of like one moving person. Um, and that basically is just like almost like a new kind of an attack that you can unlock. But it also means if you all are ever in the shit and you need to get like the one remaining person out of a combat, you have a way to like really excel at this, to basically put yourself in the way. You gain AC for it, they gain AC, and anybody who would approach you, you have advantage on.
Very cool. And so the divine hander, that would be a two-handed weapon, right? When I use it as such.
So here's the thing. This is a hilt. There's no actual blades to these. This is like talking about going into battle with a lightsaber. There's no weight to the actual sword. It's not going to be two-handed. The attack
Nice. Okay.
is not necessarily it's not light, but I designed these specifically to still have finesse, so you can still use dexterity because they don't have the weight of blades. And if you choose to go further towards your 2-weapon fighting, in specifically, I think the next feat is called 2-weapon fighting, you would be able to use non-finesse or non-light weapons as if they were light. So it's specifically designed to kind of follow suit with this idea that if you put more effort into being a 2-weapon fighter, this sword is effectively a very two-handed weapon that you can wield one-handed.
Right. Got
Wow.
it. Very cool. Yeah.
And then the last quest for you is to kill the first creature and kill the last creature in 3 different combats. To basically start it and end it. Um, and with that one, you are going to gain, if you kill a creature with the Hilt of Magnificence, you are immune to disease for 8 hours, and any disease that you might suffer will be suppressed. Effectively, it's kind of like a way of you almost feed like a vampire off of deaths. That's the one where I was kind of curious about maybe giving it more, but I think this weapon might be the most powerful of all of these magical ones. So I'm not sure if its highest level really needs like more added to it. But that again is where like kind of everything has to kind of balance all together.
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Um, I guess maybe the in keeping with the protection thing is possibly just as food for thought is, you know, whether like if I once I have that power is if I kill something, I can either gain immunity myself or give it to somebody else. But that's just an idea that popped into my head. So, not anything I'm asking for specifically.
We might be able to do something like that, but it would have to be limited to one creature, because otherwise you could almost share it with people constantly. But I think I'd rather keep it limited to you as like a boon, um, for having already kind of given of yourself for others. Um, and again, this is kind of weird because we don't have Larry here, but I'm not going to go through all of this to show his to the whole party. I'm hoping to have these created on D&D Beyond before he returns. So I'm going to still kind of post his here because I still want you all to have a recognition, like trying to balance between them and trying to find like a level of balance. Um, so his is, um, he basically pulls like a large mace that almost has like a big stone topper to it. And this was the first one that I created. Larry got back to me so quick, so I had a lot of time to think on his. So that's part of what I was most worried about. So he can cast a spell into this and basically store a spell from the day before inside of the mace, currently limited to level 2. Um, he can, yeah, it's got the AC or the spell store. Um, if he has a spell stored in it, he can use the mace to either cast levitate or he can cast the spell that he actually stored into it. But it's the same spell power is burnt from the actual mace itself. And his is just called the Lunar Mace. Um, so his second level quest is to cast spiritual weapon into the mace as if he was charging it, but he gains for the next 30 seconds. He can use the Lunar Mace as a magical weapon with +1 to hit and +1 damage rolls. Um, after killing, I feel like I worded that one weird. Yeah, I feel like I did this one before everybody else, so it's worded kind of weird. After he kills 5 creatures using the spiritual weapon buff, he's going to have this will permanently become a +1 magical mace. The next level up is to, um, let's see, store a spell before the moon sets, basically like the night before, storing a spell like under moonlight, and then use all of his spells before he uses the spell that is inside of the mace. And if he does that twice, the mace can then store 3rd level spells or a 3rd level spell. And then his final quest will be to essentially cast Levitate on 5 allies other than himself, and then on himself. And when he does that, he will gain the ability to then cast Fly or Levitate. If it's a level 2 spell that he stored, he can cast Levitate. If he stored a level 3 spell, he can cast Fly. So that's his weapon there. So that's kind of like the rough idea. Again, I'm open to like actually talking during the week to see where everybody wants to go with these. If you like how I design them, if you have thoughts and ways that you kind of want to approach them differently. But these are meant to be kind of like a focus of your character that develops through this campaign and is always like their most powerful ability kind of thing, or rather giving them most powerful abilities that you wouldn't normally have the ability to get.
Yeah, no, this is very cool.
So other than that, effectively Wakanda is going to kind of look around to everybody as they're all like glowing in their different items and different new magical creations, and he's just going to kind of check, is everyone pleased? You don't feel that I've cheated you, do you?
Oh, most definitely not. You've been very generous. There we go, as he's looking at the ring. Still not having put it on yet.
Yes, thank you very much. These are wonderful gifts. But so, hey, is there anything else that we might be of service with? Um, because I am still so interested in your spell book.
Ah, my dear, the world is filled with spell books to be found and spells to learn.
Oh, thank you.
Your riches and the things that you might find while you are traveling through Chult may one day be able to buy you such things. I believe, were I to decide to sell this book, I would be looking for probably between 20 and 25,000 gold pieces.
Is that all? Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much for the gifts. These truly were exquisite.
So, in general, just like for you, when you are looking to buy scrolls or spell books, you will almost always pay for, like in a spell book, the most powerful spell. You'll pay for that, which for a 6th level spell is approximately 15 to 25,000 gold pieces. For a scroll, you can get it made to order, and you'll pay like similar. Like if you bought a 6th level spell, you're gonna pay 15,000 to 25,000 gold. But like part of why he never showed you the book is this idea that this book is a book of spells, but you don't know what's in it.
Yes.
But also to like bring it to mind as well, like a 6th level spell, if you were to request a spell from him at 6th level, he would spend 8 weeks creating this spell, and he would expend at least 15,000 gold pieces.
All right, I'll get off I'll get off the spell book.
Well, one of the things is, though, is being a wizard, it's really easy for you to learn stuff when you find it, but finding stuff is so much better than trying to buy it. Trying to buy stuff is, there's a lot of wizards and it's expensive to do. It's one of the reasons why, in general, a wizard has, like, you can find spell books because wizards are so ready to protect their spells that you want to duplicate your book. And that's why spell books even exist in the first place, is that usually somebody spent all of this time trying to duplicate so they could protect all of their spells.
So buying bad, finding or otherwise acquiring good. Got it.
A wizard never has money. And a party never has money if they supply their wizard with crack. I mean gold, with gold. If they supply them with gold. Yeah,
Well,
nobody
I just
lives for
you guys I just need one more spell. I just need that spell that makes people sell you stuff for more. Come on, man, just one more spell.
So let's see. I think to go in like a little bit more detail of some of the actual quests that were given to you, I'm going to drop these into Discord as well, where they're basically going to discuss that there's a certain profitability of if you all decide. Oh, that's Hydra. If you all decide to escort the folk of Camp Vengeance back to Camp Vengeance, that is essentially one of your quests. Another one is to explore the Aldani Basin. Find artist Kimber. And then seek out Orlunga. So overall, this was like a really weird kind of session on how things played out. I don't necessarily want to spend a ton of time in Nyanzaru because realistically, inside of a city and where you all I can really do is like fuck you over by stealing stuff from you. With NPCs, there's nothing, in my opinion, that is terribly entertaining about being here, other than you all kind of like checking in, getting you these gifts and figuring out how you are going to progress forward. So as far as things go, I am hoping to actually push you back out into the jungle next week. Do you all have things in mind? Um, one of the things to not hide from you is if you need more gold for buying supplies, you can try to request another stipend. Um, don't forget that you all do need to purchase things like more mosquito incense and mosquito oils, and you have a little bit more of an understanding of like the length of time and difficulty kind of ahead of you. That last trip was 27 days outside of Port Nyanzaru.
Yeah, I was kind of I had the thought of maybe when we speak with Syndra again, asking for a second stipend. And then also maybe seeing if we can find essentially a quest that'll pay that is kind of, depending on what we decide we want to do, kind of, even if it's just like on our way to doing something else, if we can make a little money on the side kind of thing.
So, well, where are you all financially? Are you that stressed that you require more beyond the gifts of Watanda? Just in
Yeah,
general, where's everybody at kind of financially?
yeah, I can only speak for myself, but if we are going to be spending a good deal more time out in the jungles, I will need some likely need some funds to pay for food and insect repellent and such. And just in terms of, uh, I'm at 5 gold, 4 silver. If I recall, it was um, well, the big expense I guess last time was hiring Eku. Um, but I think like the incense is a little costly as well.
Yeah, hiring Eku was part of it. Buying the canoes were one of the biggest expenses previously.
Right, right, yeah.
It should have stolen. Did we adjust my gold? Because I feel like we talked about that at the beginning. You looked at it, and I don't know if I did or not, but I have 177 gold.
I feel like that probably did not get adjusted.
Ah,
I don't think there's any reason for you to have that much more than everybody else.
I'm very fancy. I'm glad to adjust it down.
Yeah, I have 41 gold. Thanks to that 1 gold I got for that shit.
Yeah, I mean, unless I'm missing some time when we got some gold, but
Where's Darren at?
I just like to say before I joined the group, I was with another group that was robbing banks.
So that's why it's all stealing with you.
Yeah, I just remembered that, the whole amnesia thing. Cameron or Darren.
I feel like we lost him. Well, regardless, I've got Island as at 8 gold as well, so I have a feeling, in general, everybody is kind of like at a pretty reduced amount. I feel like um, Taryn is likely to have more than the initial three, purely because he was already a second tier character. So I feel like that might be part of it.
yeah, like Valdis said, because I think we had essentially our main characters bought our supplies for our sidekicks, so and then Taryn
Yeah.
stepped up. So yep, that makes sense.
So Darren said his mic, Cam said his mic is not working, but that Darren has 4 gold. So I think what we'll probably do here is let's say you all can have. Let me get all the 5 of you to roll a d4. You guys can all have 40 gold plus these d4. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, just the one is going to count there.
Yeah, I did see
So
that.
4, 8, 11. So she'll give you all, effectively, I would say, go for 51 gold and enough to purchase the other supplies that you all are looking to get here. That effectively means things like the actual incense. I would say like minor things. Like if you're gonna re-up on healers kits, that's the type of thing that I would say that will come out of that. But like you guys can get the insect repellents. I mean, I see Island still has 32 doses of his. That 100% should be much lower, having been out for 27 days. And I think it's basically 2 a day for those. So I feel like in the long run, that's the type of stuff where it's cool if you keep track of it. I don't want to take it out of that gold because you don't necessarily keep track of it. but the healer's kit, because that's something very functional and very important, I think that should come out of that money and be something that you decide how much to carry, how much not to carry of them. So I would say just everybody kind of equalize yourselves at 51 gold here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I ended up just essentially, 'cause I think when we initially had left the port, we had tried to essentially buy as much as we thought we would need of the incense. So I essentially took myself down to 0 as we got back into the port. I hadn't really been keeping track of it while we were out, but
Yeah, and that's like precisely it. It's so much easier for you to buy a quantity and me tell you how many days have progressed afterwards. But on some level, that's also recognizing, like, do you all want to go out for a 20-day expedition? Then, like, I should kind of keep track of that. So when those 20 days hits, we actually start like dealing with the diseases. Because as far as things go, there's some really cool diseases here. Do I want to play a game where the diseases are the type of things that are your challenges? Not at all. I think it's far more entertaining for you guys to spend whatever gold to just be like, yep, I am not going to have to pay attention to the mosquito disease.
Can
So,
you
how
guys hear me
many?
now?
Yep, we got you now.
Right on.
I can stop time, but I can't ward off mosquitoes.
This is correct.
This is garbage. I want to spend a lot of time creating this a light sheer net spell.
This is one of those places where you can like step outside and it looks foggy, and then you recognize that it's just mosquitoes. And you
Thanks, I
can't
hate it.
see.
So again, like Houston.
I've actually like hung out with uh oh man, I can't think of it now, but it's like an insect repellent little like electronic thing that like heats up a little pad with like mosquito repellent, and you can like see a wall of mosquitoes around you if you stay in the same place when the air is like very stagnant. And it's absurd because you can see like the 5 foot barrier where this stuff smells so the mosquitoes stay away, and then it's just like a little breeze and I'm fucked. But as long as there's no wind, there's no mosquitoes.
I haven't seen that.
So it's a popular thing for hunting. They now make them for camping. I can't think of who it is, but it's a big brand. And it's kind of old technology at this point. But like I use it like disc golfing. I don't go hunting that much anymore, but I throw it on myself while I'm disc golfing, and it is amazing to keep the mosquitoes away from you.
I've never heard of this. I don't know why I've never heard of this. We find them year round. Like there's mosquitoes probably right now.
Definitely the worst part about living in a nice like temperature area where there's like no winter, the mosquitoes never die. So yeah, I would say everybody can get, what do you want to do? Like 20 doses, so 40 doses of the repellents. Do you want to try to stay out longer than 20 days? What do you all think you are going to do next?
and I guess, I mean, my thinking is maybe if we try to go check out Oralunga, but we could also, on the way, essentially return to Camp Vengeance and try and do that like escort quest. Um,
What is your goal with Orlunga? I'm just going to throw it out there as kind of a little bit of meta knowledge. That is not the place to go until you know what you want to ask.
okay. I was more going off of I guess when Syndra said it might be wise to return there, but
Yeah, that's part of why I think it like fits to give it to you is again, that's one of those things where it is a recognition that there is some sort of diviner there, but it's a place that's like kind of lost to time. So the fact that you all saw it from Umbala, and it's now on the map, that you had artists confirm it, the way you all played those things combined gives you access to like basically knowing that's one of those places where when you don't know what to do, you can go there and get answers. Um, but that's kind of what you have to like wait for. It's not necessarily a destination, it's a solution.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I guess in that case, I mean, and also given Syndra seems interested in this, in the Ring of Winter, and we know Artis has a connection to Mesro, maybe trying to investigate and seeing what's going on, seeing if like we can find the ruins or. But again, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. So anybody else who has ideas, I'm not wedded to anything in particular.
I mean, that could be a reason to go to Orlunga if we want to know how to get to Mesro. The real Mesro.
You've got Mesro on your map right now. You all could take the river Tiri. Damn it, why it's so bad on this one?
I think it's Tariki, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Tariki anchorage, right?
Yeah. You can use the Tariki, River Tariki, and then basically like trek across that area. You all would know that this is one of the most like populated with undead because again, attacking Mesro is where Rosny lost control of his undead.
I want to find artists.
And does Rin have any thoughts? Like, what would you like to do?
Hmm. I mean, I'm down for what the party's down for. Going to Mesro sounds great. Finding an artist sounds great. I'm here for it. Just here for it.
Adventure.
So between yourselves, what all do you all think? Like, if Artis, Mesro, and Orlunga are kind of the thoughts, what are you all thinking?
In relation to, can we do what's closer and what's further? Like, does it make sense to do kind of all three, but one is closer and makes the decision of order easier?
Do you see where Mesro is?
Well, let me zoom my map out.
Mesro is on the far eastern coast by Kitcher's Inlet, and it's currently circled, and it's got the black square.
Yep.
And then Orlunga is on the kind of opposite side of the peninsula,
Yep.
off to the western side underneath the Mist Cliff Mountains.
Got it.
So those two locations just to themselves are already kind of like opposite sides. Part of why I would suggest that again, like Orlunga might not be a place that you all want to go. The quests that I gave you all there might not be quests that you all want to do because those are returning to a place where you've been already. You've explored that area and you already have, a lot of knowledge of it. Doesn't mean that there's not necessarily other things to do. I just want to point it out like on that level. But those are the ones that they were able to share rumors about as you actually found locations or discussed topics that were pertinent to those places.
So, are the flaming fists enemies, or are they just like a mercenary group, neutral? Like, if we went to Mesro, would we have to worry about them?
You definitely have to worry about the flaming fists, almost regardless. If you all do not want to worry about the flaming fists, you actually have to head directly to Fort Balarian and go there to buy a charter that gives you effectively an allowance to travel Chalt and like look for stuff. Um, but they basically, if you all right now, if you all encounter them in the wilds, which I believe the night that Jarek summoned the Liamon's tiny hut, that was the people who walked by before you saw the Yuan-Ti. The Flaming Fists will basically kill you all for traveling in their land without a charter.
Hmm.
I kind of think of it almost like the difference between like pirates and like privateers, where they give you like a letter of marque and they say, okay, do what you want, but you pay us for the privilege or something like that.
How expensive is a contract?
Well, to kind of reiterate something else as well, like the merchant princes run Port Nyanzaru, which is kind of like the de facto capital of Chalt. But the Flaming Fists are out of Fort Balarian. They have no power in Port Nyanzaru. Um, the Flaming Fists are kind of usurpers who have come here and said, "This is ours." So that you have Wakandu as like one of your patrons wouldn't even help you against them. As far as it goes, I think it's like 50 gold or something to purchase a charter.
Like per person or for a group?
I believe it's for the group.
Okay.
Do we still have our canoes?
Technically, you all have sold your canoes to the Order of the Gauntlet. That's actually one of the pieces of paper that I believe Island still has that you all can redeem for gold.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That'd probably be something to do while we're in town as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even have it noted down here, which is poor, but
I mean, I'm definitely interested in trying to find artists again. I guess part of my thought process for possibly heading towards Mesro is that we know artists is at least tangentially connected with that as well. And if we can, I don't know, um, maybe there's information there that we can use to find artists again, or
well, and
um,
that's definitely another thing as well. Artist is a person who's being sought by a lot of people. What makes you all think that you can actively find him?
Hmm.
Searching for artists and stumbling across artists are two completely different things because he is actively trying not to be found.
Perhaps we search for him on our way to Mesro.
Not four
like
door.
I'm thinking, if we find, maybe it's like the case where if we find something that he's interested in, like some piece of information or something like that, maybe it's a case where he finds us rather than. But I don't know.
So, how does bringing Eku along work if we're not going to Mbala?
Oh, that's up to you all to figure out.
All right. Okay.
That's part of the fun of that character.
I mean, there are also other guides we could potentially hire.
Right. I remember we had the talk about like how pretty useful Eku is comparatively, but if we have to, we have to.
Yeah, during those 27 days, she fed them and she supplied drinking water. If you all do not head out of her, you either have to make sure that Island is preparing, create and destroy. I think it's create and destroy food and drink. Um, but there's spells that he can kind of make up that same ground now that he's at this level. But like primarily, most of what the crew, like I think you guys have probably been with the group for probably 20 of those days. because I think it was like 13 or so days coming back. Yeah, I think you guys are probably around 15 to 20 days with the party at that point. Um, Most of that food would have been supplied from Eku, and all of the fresh drinking water has been supplied by Eku. If you drink water in Chult, you are going to get diseases.
What is this, the Oregon Trail?
Oh, this is 100% the Oregon Trail. This
Nice.
this is like an exploration campaign. That's one of the things that it's kind of a weird aspect of it because I don't like to run bookkeeping campaigns, but that's straight up what this is meant to be is a hex crawl.
Yeah, but I mean, if Island learns, I think it's create food and water, and then there's one called like create or destroy water or something like that. So probably the first one.
Yeah, create food and water. Okay, yep, that sounds
Who has the jug of mayonnaise right now?
Taryn has the jug of mayonnaise.
Excellent. We should sell that mayonnaise. We should jar it and sell it. But after that, that can be our water source, right?
it can go a long way for it.
Yeah, I can create up to 8 gallons of fresh water with it a day.
I think each person in Chult needs 2 gallons of fresh water. If you switch to that, though, I guarantee I have to look it up because the party, at least with retinue, will be too large for it. Um,
But
but
I
I
guess
feel
if we
like
could,
Chult, because of the temperature and the humidity, is 2 gallons a day.
I mean, if we could figure out a way to, which I guess we could like boil water, like if we got some pans and
Well,
stuff where
and
they
there were
were able
those
to.
rain catches that were a few dollar, like few gold. It's one of those things. Like if you all go a different route, you basically have the choice. You could rehire Eku because she basically adventured for you with you all as a part of your party. You could rehire Eku, and you just have to create a sales pitch to put off the decision. You all know that you've gone there, so you're wise enough to have like some solutions there. The alternative is pretty simple ideas of like actually getting rain catches or being prepared to spend time boiling water.
How much was the Eku?
Oh, she paid the 30 gold to become an adventurer with you, where she took a cut of everything.
I don't see why we wouldn't take Eku or something else like her.
Yeah, especially if we're going a place where we haven't really been before. Like if we were going back to Camp Vengeance, maybe we don't need her because now we kind of know the way a little bit. But
Yeah, Mara, whenever I chose the new level 3 spells, I was not aware of the gift, which is a close contact kind of reclamation of hit points, which is why I chose Vampiric Touch for when I'm in close situations of combat. So the gift really kind of does not the same thing, but sort of like it allows me to get out of that situation and regain hit points. I'd like to change.
Well, hold on a second. I think they actually work together quite well without even knowing that you had gone for Vampiric Touch. What that thing does is it takes their reactions away. Like once you have it fully leveled, it will take their reaction away, which allows you to choose, do I want to leave this combat or stay in this combat? As well as it does damage to them for attacking you. That just means that when you use Vampiric Touch, it's not giving you hit points back. It's doing damage to them. From the Diadem, Vampiric Touch would allow you to actually replenish that damage. So it would actually increase your damage output having those two together.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because that one, it's like basically if something reaches out towards you, you're a rose bush at this point now. Like touching you will cut people, is kind of what I was getting at with the idea of that. And then part of the point of how it moves people away is this idea that once you level it up, it actually has like 10 feet of not necessarily like roots, but kind of like plant growth around you, where you can kind of push something back with the power of, like, it's almost like using their own attacks against them, where the diadem is going to like blast back with these roots, and you can basically repel something to give yourself an ability to flee if you'd like. But if you wanted to close back in and attack them, it's perfectly there for you to do. They just lose their reaction, is part of it, because they're basically wrapped up in these vines on some level.
Okay. Is there any way to not, or is there any way to get so I would like to figure out how to get the tiny hut spell before leaving and going into the jungle. And
I'm
if
not saying it's not necessarily a good choice to take the tiny hut instead of vampiric touch. What was the other one you did? Fireball?
yeah, I was gonna take fireball.
Here's the thing. Level 3 spells are the best spells in the game. There's never a good choice of what to buy. This is kind of the pinnacle of the game. Like, the best stuff happens at this level. Everybody comes into their own, and that's why level 3 spells are very rich with what they do. It's very important what you choose here, but it also means that on some level, when you level next time, you're going to get to choose your backups. As far as things go, you've already seen part of the value of Tiny Hut with what Jarek was able to do when he used it. You also have a vague understanding that he has 2 more uses of that one. And the other option is you all actually like risk camping out normally. If Tiny Hut is worth that to you, take it. If it's not yet worth it to you, it might be worth it next level.
I think it's worth it to me more than vampiric touch at this point, right?
I mean, I don't want to tell you how to play your character, but if
No,
you ask me, I would agree that at least at this point, that vampiric touch is definitely a higher cost, but it's a high reward use. Whereas the tiny hut is a very high utility thing for saving your spell slot, but you have to also remember to save that spell slot. But for the first 2 times that you need it and you forget, you all do have Jarek still.
yeah, but every time I use it will be right before a long rest. So I
So, like,
shouldn't have to worry about expending the spell slot. Just make sure that I have one for the night.
Well, that's it though. You have to wait and make sure that you have it.
I think that's what he's saying. Like, you can't, like, if you cast 2 fireballs in like a battle, then you won't
Yeah.
be out of slots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing with spell slots is a lot of fun because you have to think a lot of stuff through. And just telling people, oh, yeah, I spent all my spell slots, we got to stop now, is not always something that's an option.
No, and I feel like I'm pretty damage heavy though, like with my cantrips, um, with Firebolt and Toll the Dead. And then I have my additional ability to turn a bonus action into an action to redo one of those, with and that's not counting, when shit goes awry, then I can fire off Fireball. So having Vampiric Touch is just another damage spell. When I think that I'll be able to, like, I'm not great whenever we get interrupt, or like whenever we have to have combat in the evening. So I think, yeah, I think I'd rather switch out Vampiric Touch for Tiny Hut.
That's legit. Go for it. Yeah, like I said, Lehman's Tiny Hut is one of the most powerful spells in this game. You're not going to feel when you cast that it's wasted that often.
Excellent. So I guess then we just need to figure out food and water, and we can do that with Echo. I don't think 30 gold is a lot to pay for that. What were some of the other options for beings like Eku that brought different things.
I think there were a bunch of different guides, and they all I think all kind of had like options where you could like we either pay them a certain amount, or if we agree to essentially help them with something, then it either costs less or they do the same thing where they kind of okay they won't charge much up front, but they'll take a cut of stuff. But I imagine like we could, in town, like there seemed to be a almost like a bulletin board kind of thing, and we could like go by there and see kind of maybe who's available if we want to consider other options.
Yeah, it looks like that's the stuff that some of the stuff I lost when my hard drive died. So I don't have them like prepared to show you. But effectively, there's like 6 or 8 different ones here in Port Nyanzaru. And realistically, at this point, I would say we'll probably just pick up with you all still in Nyanzaru, at very least doing like the last little bits of this cleanup before leaving, with the general idea that you'll leave towards Mesro. But we'll kind of leave that open at this point, to kind of like end things, to like wrap it up here. But basically, you have like a choice of these people who are kind of doing a sales pitch about themselves to kind of like effectively try to sell themselves to you so they can make some money.
Yeah, and actually, if you scroll like way up towards the top in the Sages and Slayers Discord, Mara, you had actually earlier posted a few of them in the Discord.
Gotcha. I can actually go up there and pin them so they show up in the pins.
It was back on August 15th, so kind of pretty close to the top.
Oh, those beautiful views of Brazil from the Aldani Basin. Got the view of Eku in her natural dragon form.
Oh, so I guess just to confirm, is the I don't know, I feel like maybe the plan was to not play next weekend, but I mean I won't be available, but feel free to go on if there's enough people to play without me.
Oh, Echo, super cool.
I have this one. It looks like marked off with Island, Chris, Larry, Chris, and Justin. Yeah, can't play. So I think what we had talked about was potentially if Darren or Darcy and Cameron, if your brother wanted to play, we could do a one shot. But that was one of the things that I wanted to kind of see, like where you all were at family wise, whether we were going to try to do something like that. Otherwise, again, it's the day after Christmas next week.
Oh, I don't think he ended up being available for that. But
Mm-hmm. The other brother's being a tit about it. So I don't think Andy's going to play next weekend.
Okay,
Although,
there's a total of 4 of you, or do you all even have more than 4?
no, there's 3 of us.
Oh, okay. The other brother is the one who's being the tit. I got
right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what it would be is the start of the new year, which is going to be the 2nd, I believe, for Saturday. Yeah. So I think that would be our next day, essentially looking to set back out from Port Nyanzaru.
Yeah, and I won't be able to attend that one because I'll be working.
Gotcha.
So getting out of the port, then, is that something we would like continue doing with some givens, or would we wait until the week after?
Wait, maybe second actually. I have to get back in that. I think.
Oh, good.
I'm
I'd
good.
rather mark you off if you think it and be surprised that you can make it. I'd rather mark people like that you're going to miss than assume that you're going to be there and then have you miss. And I didn't really understand what you were going for there, Cameron. Um, what will we leave the port that week?
Right. So I was just wondering how session would go with it, being that Taryn would come with us in the jungle again, but how does that play out since he can't be there?
Sadly, part of Chris's schedule is that we lose him every fourth week anyways.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty normal to kind of lose access to Chris. Hopefully it's always reduced as much as possible. But again, sadly, that's part of how his schedule kind of flips.
Right on.
As far as that goes, in most of my games, I completely ignore when people are gone. We try to move past it as simple as possible. Part of why this group has the actual retinue following with them is that it goes on expeditions, and having backups is very important, just as much as if there's 3 players, I usually want 3 players to be playing their backups, because 6 people is far less swingy than having 4 or 3 or 2.
Right.
So it just that's part of why they exist, is for replacements when shit does go wrong, but also for when a lot of people are absent. If your brother was looking to play, and it was going to be the 3 of you, if it wasn't an ideal time to just give him a normal just one shot, it would be the type of thing if if all 3 of you were regular parts of the campaign and the other 3 were absent, we would find a way to have the 3 of you progress it, and they would kind of be following his shadows. But in general, I would say I do not want to spend another week in Port Nyanzaru. I'm not saying that I won't prepare it if that's what you all want to do, but to me, this is one of those sessions that happens because you all are leveling from 4 to 5. It happens very perfectly with when you're returning Vorn, but that's one of those things you all just stepped into a whole new tier of play, and sometimes that means you do need a lot of exposition, a lot of interaction with NPCs, and kind of paperwork like that.
Right.
But in general, to me, the actual adventuring, it's still a combat game, and as much fun as some encounters in towns are, they're realistically stuff to break it up. They're not actually going to ever challenge you, unless you're basically getting turned on by the guards, where if Darcy is left on her own, I'm sure she'll steal something, and all you guys are battling all of the actual guards of Port Nyanzaru.
Yep.
I would certainly ask someone stealthier than me to steal something.
Oh, that's not even going to help them. There's plenty of rogues who are walking around my world with no hands.
Yeah, we're gonna wind up